Welcome everyone to the Sunday Speedrunner Spotlight. April Fools, it's Saturday. Got 'em.
Ha!
Get wrecked.
Got him. Yep.
Yep, easy.
Absolutely bamboozled him.
Yeah, huge joke. All right, well, let's get started here. How you doing, Dangers?
I'm great, thanks. It's a little early for my usual daily routine, so
Hmm.
I might be a little bit scatterbrained, but otherwise doing just fine. I got my coffee to combat that, and kind of excited to be talking about speedrunning again because it's been a minute since
Hmm.
it's been on my radar, to be honest. How are you doing?
I'm good. I always enjoy doing these little speedrun interviews, so always a good time. I like listening to people's stories, why I do it.
Yeah, I love talking about speedrunning. I don't
Well,
know.
then
It's
this is a
like
perfect match.
exactly, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the most attractive people in the world are the ones who are passionate about something. Some people call that cringe. I call it I think it's just the best. So when we get to talk about something like this and we just get to deep dive into speedrunning, like that's like pure nirvana. You know what I mean? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the place you want to be.
Yep,
So
definitely. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. We'll start
absolutely.
off with the whole timeline. So, what got you into it? How'd you get started?
So my speedrunning journey started a lot longer back than just what Twitch might lead you on to believe. So I started streaming on Twitch in 2018. That happened because I was working in kitchens at the time. Like I was a full blown normie for a while, working in restaurants and stuff. And then I just like I had an accident, something like I had appendicitis and had to get it removed. So I wasn't able to like work in restaurants anymore for like 2 weeks, and I had to do something to fill my time. So kind of just sitting on the couch flipping through like YouTube, and I found Summoning Salt, and
Mm,
the rest is kind of history from there. But I
classic.
actually yeah, it's
Everyone,
a
that's
classic.
everyone's story. It's
Yeah, it's
my
a classic
story. Well, minus the
speedrunning
cooking.
discovery story.
Yeah.
Yeah, um I'm actually kind of interested, like when did Summoning Salt kind of cross your radar then?
Uh, for me, it was August 2017. I didn't watch Twitch
2017.
at all. Um, there are sirens going off near me. Sorry, I got distracted by that.
That's
Speed
okay.
police are on their way.
Yeah,
Um,
they know we're fast.
but yeah, August 2017. It was randomly on YouTube. Um, I think I was searching something about Mega Man music, and a Mega Man 2 video popped up, and I was like, for some reason that sounds interesting. And then Mario 1 was recommended after that, and that was the first game I ever played and beat. So
Yeah, and
there's
the
that
rest is history,
nostalgic.
right?
So I watched it. Next day, made a Twitch account. Here we are.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yep, that sounds about right. I
Mm-hmm.
think that speedrunning, well, we can talk about this a little bit later. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose we're still talking about my history, right? Um, and the true history is that it is kind of based in nostalgia all on its own as well. Because before Twitch and before finding Summoning Salt and before all of that, I found this little website in like 2008 or 2009. It was ages ago. Little known website called JTV, which was like the precursor to Twitch.tv.
Justin TV. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin TV. And it was like the premier live streaming service. It was very archaic. It was like the first of its kind. Um, and that website had everything. Like, you know how today with Twitch you have the categories, and the categories are each an individual game.
Mm-hmm.
Justin TV was like so premier that like gaming was the category, and then there was like a
Mm-hmm.
live streaming category, and there was a sports category. Like gaming was all just lumped together because that's how few streamers there were back then. And the reason I found that is because I was actually in a Super Smash Brothers Brawl clan online, and I was in the Nintendo forums when they still had them. That's how old I am. That's how old we're talking. Um,
It's all right.
but we ended up moving to Justin TV because we wanted to like stream our brawl strats. We wanted to be able to like watch each other and like kind of hang out with each other while live streaming, which was kind of cool. But it was there that I found a couple of people who were doing something called speedrunning. And they were doing it with Mario games, and they were doing it with the Donkey Kong Country games. And I didn't really understand if there was a community around it or anything like that. All that I kind of discovered after that was Speed Demos Archive. And it was kind of funny because like I discovered a couple people doing it at the same time that I was like, because I was streaming, I was playing some of my old games and some of my old consoles and stuff like that, and Super Mario World came back on my radar. And I feel like kind of a speedrunning hipster because before I found any of the Speed Demos archive stuff, I turned on Super Mario World and I had 95 out of 96 exits. And I actually kind of scoured the game in like a playthrough when I was like 14 to try and find what that last exit was. Can you guess? Can you guess what exit I was missing?
Jeez, I haven't played Mario World recent enough to remember everything.
So the one that I was missing was Star World 3, the regular exit, because in the Star World you need
Oh,
the secret
that's where you
exits
just
to
run to the
progress.
right, right?
Yeah, you
Oh
literally
my.
just run to the right
Okay.
on the screen that's like this big.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well.
missed that one for obvious reasons because I got the secret exit. I got to continue the game, right? So
Mm-hmm.
but kind of playing through it and like revitalizing that nostalgia was all it took for me to be like, huh. Like if you wanted to beat this game in one sitting, you could probably do that pretty easy. Like you just follow this little path here and then you just get to the end. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did. Like the next like as soon as I got my 96 exits, I started a new file and I just played through like that. And I was like, "Oh, that was actually kind of easy. Like that was kind of fun." Like how long did it take though? So then I brought up like a timer on my phone and did the same thing. So I kind of like very instinctively came to the conclusion of speedrunning myself. And then when I found that there were other people on Justin TV doing it, I was like, there's got to be a community out there then. Like, this is a thing. Like, this is a thing that people have been doing. So, and that's how I found Speed Demos Archive. And that website on its own is very archaic as well. Like, they have some kind of interesting rules about like what was allowed to be a speed run and like some speedruns were denied because they weren't like cool enough and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
if they were doing certain glitches they weren't allowed like very archaic speedrunning rules kind of stuff, but it did lead me to finding out about Andrew G, who had the world record in Super Mario World at the time at 11 minutes flat. And that was kind of like my inspiration, my benchmark. As soon as I found that, I was like, oh, I could do what he's doing. Yeah, no problem. Like, I'll just copy that. And so I did end up streaming Super Mario World speedruns and some All Star speedruns as well. I know you don't like All Stars, but it was all I had at the time.
I mean, I have Small Stars record, so I can't say that I
Yeah,
hate
that's
it,
fair.
but I mean,
I,
I definitely prefer
I
the
know
NES
it's
versions.
they are the inferior versions. I
Thank
will
you.
agree.
Yes, very true.
Yeah. But I did some speedruns of those because they were all I had. I remember also branching out to Portal. I also did some like Left 4 Dead speedruns. We did like co-op Left 4 Dead speedruns on Justin TV. That was really sick. That was really fun. But that was my start. Like way back in like 2008, 2009, I was doing that on Justin TV. And then when I kind of graduated high school, I started to kind of focus on my career and like slipped away from having an online presence and slipped away from speedrunning and stuff. And then it kind of revitalized when, I was kind of put out of work. It was
Yeah.
almost like a blessing in disguise because now here I am, the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's crazy you were away from it for like almost a decade.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was about eight
Like that's
years.
super primitive stuff,
Yeah.
especially
And
like Justin TV. I don't know like anyone that streamed back then.
yeah, and it was like a completely different online atmosphere too. Like when you when you wanted to submit your speedruns to Speed Demos Archive back then, you literally had to like take a physical copy, like a DVD or like a video cassette or something, and like mail it to them
Mm-hmm.
for them to verify and put on their website, which was something that a 14-year-old kid from Canada was just incapable of doing. So I was unfortunately kind of invisible from being a part of the community at that point, except for the people that knew me on Justin TV, which was again not very many people at all. And I don't even know if some of those speedrunners are around today. The one that comes to mind, his name is V Richter, but I don't know if he still streams. So yeah, again, like very archaic stuff, very old. I did kind of like refine speedrunning maybe in like 2012, and it was because my roommate and I rediscovered Twitch at the time, like when they rebranded it and
Mm-hmm.
became Twitch and Pokemon. It was what was it? It was like Twitch plays Pokemon or something like
Oh,
that.
that, yeah.
We got really involved in that, and that kind of led us to finding games done quick on YouTube as well. And so me and my roommate did a little bit of speedrunning, but again, like it was still pretty archaic. We didn't have very good ways of recording it or anything like that, so we kind of just did it for fun. But then again, kind of fell off the wayside, and I took a big break from it again. So, but it's always kind of been intriguing to me because um, I think I've said it this way for Mario games specifically for a really long time that like it kind of pulls on your sense of nostalgia if you really like Mario games. Um, you want an excuse to play them again, but Mario games on their own are kind of like bland to just play again as a casual playthrough because you know where all the secrets are, you know where everything is, you know how to do everything. So you need something else. You need something to kind of add a challenge to what you're doing, and speedrunning is the perfect challenge because it
Mm-hmm.
is literally limitless replay value.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that speedrunning is a great way to kind of bring life back into those Mario games that you love.
Yeah, if you ever want to, you have 1,000 hours in like perfectly normal games like your RPGs or like online games, but if you want to have 1,000 hours in Mario, speedrunning.
Exactly, yeah. And there are other ways to do it too. There's like
Mm-hmm.
challenge runs, like damage lists and stuff like that. But it's a lot easier to rack up 1,000 hours in, like, say, Pokemon, because you can, I don't know, be a competitive player and you can like make teams and fight them online, or you can be one of those collectors who like does the living decks and then also does them all shiny afterwards. Like, there's so much replay value in an RPG, but in a platforming game, there's only so much you can do before you 100% the game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So you rediscovered speedrunning in 2018 then?
that's right. Yep. And it was a summoning salt video that did
Mm-hmm.
it. I was perusing YouTube, and I found Games Done Quick again in 2018 while I was kind of sitting on my butt just watching YouTube or wasting time. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember this really fondly. Speedrunning was really fun. Like, I wonder if people are still doing this, was kind of my thought. If more people are doing it than
Oh
ever
yeah.
before. Yeah. It had exploded into a community that I couldn't even really comprehend, because like what I thought of it was just like some sort of like really, really niche thing that people just kind of do in their spare time, but it had blown up into this whole thing. And like Summoning Salt was making videos that had millions of views on them, and Games Done Quick was raising like millions of dollars at their charity events. And I was like, wow, okay, so it's a big thing. And then it kind of like struck me that Super Mario Odyssey had just come out like 6 months prior. And I was like, I've never really thought about speedrunning a 3D Mario game, but I'm sure people are. So what's the deal with that? So I went to Twitch because I figured Twitch would be where people live stream speedrunning. Like, if there's going to be a community for it, it's going to be there. Sure enough, I was right. And
Mm-hmm.
like right when I looked it up, Nicrovita, who now just goes by Nicro, was streaming on Twitch. And he had the world record in Super Mario Odyssey at the time of like a 103, I want to say like 39 or 49 or something like that. And I was just watching him, and the world record run that he had at the time was like full of like falling off the stage in Snow Kingdom and like dying and stuff like that. I was like, I think I could probably do that. Yeah, you give me enough time, I could probably do that too. And again, the rest is
Mm-hmm.
history. It was just like it sparked my desire to try it out for myself. Um, and it was very archaic then. I remember like playing on my TV, sitting on my couch, and then my computer was across the room over here, and I had like the timer splits up, and I had a wireless keyboard so that I could split from my couch, and no mic, no camera, just like the raw setup for streaming on Twitch for speedrunning. I was like, I'm gonna let Twitch record all my VODs, but I really don't have any hardware to do it. Just the capture card. That's all I got. So
Mm-hmm. I was raw for a long time, like
yeah.
3 years, so I understand.
Yeah. And at the time, I wasn't really even, I was just going to make it a hobby. I was just like, yeah, this is fine. I just want to record my speedruns. But I kind of got captivated by the whole streaming atmosphere, and like
Mm-hmm.
meeting people who share your similar interests. It was very addicting to be a part of a community who really enjoyed doing this. So that's kind of what inspired me to keep pushing it a little bit further. And I got a microphone and I got a camera, mostly for my cat. And then when I went to GDQ is when I was like, oh no, I need a camera for my face, because if I go to these events, people are going to be like, oh, hey, you, and then do that thing where they like grab your badge and
Mm-hmm.
like look, squint at your name. It's like, oh, it's you. And like, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're going to recognize my face now.
Yeah, I had to
um,
flash my badge because I was faceless for a long time.
that's right. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the when I met you, I kind of had to do that. I had to do the double take. So
Well, plus when we met in person, it was masks, so it was like,
that certainly doesn't help. Yeah.
yeah. I
That
mean,
doesn't help.
I remember like taking mine off in the lobby, waiting for to go to the airport to leave, and someone I was hanging out with all week was like, "Who are you again?" So I put the mask back on. They're like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
it was all backwards.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then I suppose streaming and speedrunning has been quite synonymous with me. Like, every time that I've kind of dropped off of speedrunning, it's been because something else has come along in my life. But the fact that you can make a living streaming has really solidified my my ability to be able to continue speedrunning. It's like a feedback loop of of a certain kind.
Yeah, you can always
Um,
just come right back.
yes, and the fact that there's been a community that you can make money on Twitch. It's a
Hmm.
monetization platform, which is really just such a bizarre thing. Because I remember when I started kind of growing on the platform, I would tell normies about it, and they're like, people just kind of like sit there and watch you play video games, and not just video games, but like the same one over and over again.
Hmm.
I'm like, yep, they do. And they're like, and they give you money to do that? Yeah, I guess they do. And I still to this day don't really understand. Um, but I mean, it works, right? So,
It
um,
does somehow.
yeah, it sure does. I think that speedrunning as the primary focus of your content is maybe not necessarily the most sustainable thing unless you are like
Not
the
anymore.
top. Yeah, not anymore, and only if you're the top dog of something that is like relevant.
Hmm.
Um, like Tyrone 18 is the Super Mario Odyssey world record holder, and I think that that game has recently kind of fallen from popularity.
A little bit.
But he still manages to make it work because he is like the ultimate best, and there is no
Hmm.
questioning that. Whereas like somebody like me who is decent at Super Mario Odyssey wouldn't be able to continue just speedrunning Super Mario Odyssey. You kind of have to spice it up a little bit. That's why a lot of people tend to move on to like ROM hacks.
Hmm.
If you're like a Super Mario World speedrunner, it's really common to just like play the new ROM hacks that come out. It's also the same reason that like Pokemon speedrunners will do Nuzlocks or they'll do Kaizo Ironmon is really popular right now. Like whatever kind of challenge that they can kind of come up with that is substitute of speedrunning. It's also why, people like you are doing this.
Hmm.
You've got people talking about speedrunning because it's like really interesting to hear about what makes a speedrunner tick and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
um you can only watch the same game so many times before it kind of falls from grace in the popularity sphere. So we're all, I mean, most of us are kind of like sitting on the edge of our seat waiting for a new Mario game for that exact
Hmm.
reason. But there's a lot of things that you can kind of do around the speedrunning sphere that um, kind of, it's like your speedrun side hustle,
Yeah, back
I
like back in
guess.
the day, like if you did speedruns like early 2010s, like it was popular. Like Siglamic would
Yeah.
get like 15,000 viewers, and he didn't have a camera. He might not have even had a mic. I wasn't around, so I don't know what it was like. But he pulled in so much, and now like that doesn't happen anymore. If you want to be
Yeah.
like a super popular speedrunner, you have to be a content creator. So
Yes.
like all of the like major speedrunners that have like millions of subs or whatever are more like content creation focused. They're not like the best speedrunner in terms of like
Correct.
times and stuff. And I
Yeah.
mean, I can speak firsthand. I've had 175 world records now, and I'm still just like an affiliate, get average like 10 viewers sometimes. Like we out here. Like
Yeah.
I am not
It,
like a content creator, and like
it's
so
such a
that's just how
shame.
it is. Like
It's such
back
a
in the
shame
day,
that
yeah, it
like,
was so different, but
yeah,
not in today's world. It's so big that, and there's so many people that you just have to stand out and be this like
that's, yeah.
huge personality rather than
And
just being good.
content creation has kind of refined itself into this algorithmic process.
Hmm.
Like if people are coming to Twitch 10 years ago, they're the first of all the pool of talent is really limited.
Hmm.
So like what they see is pretty archaic compared to what you see now. Everybody and their grandmother has a Twitch account and is like trying to vie for space and try to grab your attention. And on YouTube especially, like if you're not catering to how YouTube wants to make your videos, then you just don't get seen.
Yeah, you have
Um,
to abide by the algorithm if you want to make it anywhere on YouTube,
yes,
and
and
it's hard to play
unfortunately,
that.
yeah, it is really hard to play that, especially as like a speedrunner, because
Hmm.
like speedrunners hold an integrity to the process. They're like, well, if this is going up on YouTube and it's a world record, like it's gotta be the run from start to finish. Like you can't cut stuff out of that. Like
Hmm.
that's the whole purpose it's there is to prove that you did it. But YouTube is like, I don't care about that. You need
Yep.
to like create an elaborate story around this. Like you need to narrate me an intro and you need to explain the process and like cut it in like really interesting ways and like that just kind of goes against the whole speedrunning kind of mentality when it comes to like creating content. You're not trying to sit there and create a story. You're just trying to show that this game can be beat from start to finish, and here is the raw footage of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
here is my evidence. Here's my proof. So it's unfortunately very anti speedrunner. Um, the only time you really get a lot of big clicks is if the game is really popular. Like I think my most popular speedrunning video is, funny enough, not even a Mario one, it's a Kirby one.
Mm.
Like because I started speedrunning Kirby in the Forgotten Land when that game first came out, and anytime I would post a world record, that was like automatic 5,000 views until it got beat like 12 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So so yeah, it's just you kind of have to hop on the trends in a different way than you do if you're just a regular content creator,
Mm-hmm.
which
Like
is kind of sad.
my channel is just like a PB VOD posting thing. I've never gotten into the content side of things. I'm actually
Right.
surprised how big it is. I mean, it's over 1,000 subs, which, I mean, I guess it helps that I've had it for 5 years, but
Yeah, time
yeah,
is the valuable resource
it's
all in
just
itself.
interesting. Like running SMP 1, like if you get a world record, it's usually super popular. Uh, Like at least the 80% ones can get like
Yeah,
millions in like the mid 2010s at least. It's kind of gotten less so over time because that's, as we were saying, how it's kind of how the algorithm kind of works nowadays and how big it is. Like
for sure.
it doesn't get as big anymore. But
And I
so
think
yeah,
that
like I think my most popular video for like a warpless record in SMP 1 is only like 14,000.
I
So
mean, that's still pretty good.
it's pretty good, but like that's just how it is now in
Yeah,
modern era. Like yeah, you can't do
it's
that.
pretty typical for what it is that you do for sure.
Mhm.
But also I think that like speedrun popularity kind of follows the narrative as well.
Mhm.
And this isn't to really blame Summoning Salt. I think what he does is excellent. But people like intrigue, people like competition, people like having something to be excited about. And when a game kind of enters its part of its life cycle where there's like no new discoveries happening, and there's maybe only like one or two people at the top vying for that top spot, and it takes them like months to get there every single time. um that's when a game kind of enters its like it's swan song, you could say.
Mhm.
Like there's not really much to look forward to anymore. I think that's part of the reason why Odyssey has fallen off, and this isn't to blame Tyrone 18, very talented runner. But the reason that there is no intrigue to Super Mario Odyssey anymore is that we all know that Tyrone 18 is going to be the one who gets the next world record. We
I mean,
all
he did
know
like
that
2 days ago.
he literally did. Yeah, he came back to any percent after like a year long break and just immediately like but that's what I mean is like there's no, it's like duh, he got it. Like
Mhm.
that's our reaction, right? Even within the community itself, it's like, yeah, of course he got it. Like that's what he does. He's Tyrone 18. Like
Mhm.
nobody is challenging him for his record. It just like he's going to sit at the top, and if anybody takes the world record from him, he's just going to take it right back. There are no real like trick discoveries being made that are like really groundbreaking and save minutes or anything like that. When you compare that to Super Mario 64,
Mhm.
which is a game that maybe it's old and doesn't have very many discoveries, but you also have like 5 or 6 people who are running Super Mario 64 120 star at any given time. There's competition there, so there's still kind of like a level of intrigue. There's still
Mhm.
like a,
Like
oh well,
anyone
it
could
could
get
be,
it.
yeah,
Well,
exactly. And
like in the top spot. Yeah.
that kind of is what bubbles up um the intrigue for watching it and stuff like that. And we're talking about like maybe 2 or 3 thousand people viewership wise
Mhm.
for the top runners of that game, which is nowhere close to 15K like it was 10 years
Mhm.
ago.
Mhm.
But in speedrunning terms, that's huge.
Oh
That's
yeah.
like Super Mario 64 is by and large like the largest speedrunning audience that you can garner if you're at the top of the game.
I mean, a lot of just top streamers nowadays in general are like 10,000 plus. So
Yeah,
the fact like
that's
Siglemic back then is like, I mean, that's insane for today's standards.
it is.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the fact that speedrunning like top level, super popular people still get like 4K or well 4 digit viewership, like yeah, that's really good.
Yep. That's the dream.
It's the
If you can
dream.
hit regular numbers like that, that's huge for Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially because like the way they monetize their platform is, it's a lot more open to like gift subs and stuff like that. So you can make do with a lower viewer number and still make it your main thing. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
You don't have to be like top top of the chain viewership. Yeah, there's tons of
Yeah,
people
that's
that are
right.
in the like three-digit hundreds. And it's like, yeah, they can make it too. Sometimes they
That's
make even more than some top people.
yeah, that's
It
true.
all depends on the community they build, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about Twitch. It's the reason that I've stuck around for so long. And it's the reason I don't really do YouTube either, because I don't
Hmm.
feel like that sense of community exists in the same way. I want to invite people into my space and just kind of hang out with me for a few hours while I do my thing. Whereas YouTube is more of like an isolating project, I
Hmm.
find. Like you kind of sit down at your PC by yourself and you like put together a video that you kind of throw out into the abyss and hope that people watch it. Your only interaction is like YouTube comments. Like it's not the same. It's the reason that I haven't really dipped into YouTube. Twitch is
Yeah.
just too intoxicating. I love that atmosphere.
What I see now from first of all, like if you want to grow on Twitch, you kind of have to grow on YouTube. That's just how it
That's
is
true,
because Twitch has no
unfortunately.
discoverability at all,
Yep,
especially for new people. But what I see a lot of now for streamers are, they'll stream and then they'll like send their raw footage to an editor and they'll edit it down to a YouTube video. So I feel like if you're gonna do YouTube with a like Twitch focus, that's the way to do it at least.
for sure.
I
Yeah,
mean, those videos could take off, but you're still like doing the streaming thing, and then you invite those people into the stream, and then you grow both at the same time while maintaining your focus on what you would more care about.
yeah. The real game-winning strategy is to basically blend the two, create a
Hmm.
hybrid. Because like you can make YouTube videos, you can kind of just like put them together on your own and then throw them. Like that's what Summoning Salt does. Like he
Hmm.
does all his research on the outside and then he puts the video together and like creates it on YouTube. And like he streams, but the stream is kind of like a separate entity from the YouTube
Yeah,
content,
he's
right? Like
actually
he.
stopped streaming entirely now.
Oh,
Well,
that's
I
yeah.
can't say that.
That's
He streams to a private account that few have
okay.
access to.
Secrets. Don't tell anybody.
I I I,
But you know,
I can't
like
talk
that.
too much about it.
Right, yeah. But
He'll
that's the
ban me.
thing is like he speed runs on that account, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, he
that's
does.
he kind of but he doesn't like turn the speedruns that he does on his Twitch channel into YouTube
No.
content. Like the YouTube content is its own thing. But the game winning strategy, like the Golden Star, the thing that you're seeing a lot of like very popular, especially Nintendo YouTube content creators do, is they will do their challenge runs or something like that on their Twitch channel. It will be kind of the majority of the focus on the Twitch channel to kind of go through that journey and like keep throwing themselves at this challenge until they beat it and then use all of that footage in throw it into a YouTube video and like narrate over it and tell a story based around how they got to the end from the start. And like
Hmm.
these are the rules that were imposed on me and I still overcame this challenge and this is what I did. Here's my story in like 30 minutes or whatever like that. Like that's kind of the gold star game winning strategy for like turning your Twitch content into YouTube content. But you
Hmm.
always have to be coming up with new challenges and you always have to be like speedrunning doesn't really work that way because you can't do that same narrative driven thing for the
Hmm.
same exact run over and over again. You know what I mean? That's why I say speedrunners have to become kind of content creators and they
Hmm.
have to like branch out and do something else.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
so
like
yeah.
other people do the stories. They combine like you can make the story of yourself, but if you're doing like one specific speed run, you want like the whole everyone, like the community's effort, and you build the
Yeah.
story around that. Like it's hard to do it on an individual.
Yeah, and it's hard to continue capitalizing on it, right?
Hmm.
Like if you know, I think
It'll
the
become
gold
like
star
same
example,
old, too
yeah,
much, and
exactly.
doesn't work very well.
Right. Which is why I think that people like Small Ant and people like Fur,
Hmm.
people like CJ, um, even people like Aggie, little Aggie,
Hmm.
I feel like they've all kind of taken that direction where they realize like if all I do is just grind the same speedrun over and over again, like this isn't YouTube content, so we need to do something else.
Yep.
And that's where they kind of diverge into the um, kind of challenge content instead. And I think something that Fur does especially well is that he makes his streams enticing by making the challenges viewer based as well. Like he can have a lot of interaction within his community to influence the stuff that happens in the game, which I think is really clever. Because then if people see it on YouTube, then they feel enticed to come to the Twitch channel
Hmm.
and be like, I want to be a part of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's just really interesting how different speedrunning content has evolved
yeah,
into
it's
that. Like
definitely
it's cool, but it's just interesting how different it was because yeah, back in the day you could just like Darbian has 100,000 subs. All he's done is upload all of his PBs normally. It's because like the Mario ones back
yep.
then would just oh yeah, there it goes. But you can't do that anymore.
Unfortunately not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Takes a little
unfortunately,
bit more
because there's
than
so many people out there that work their ass off and do deserve like more recognition, but
yeah.
and they just
Like
can't because that's not how the algorithm works anymore.
yeah, um so many people
Hmm.
that are like really talented speedrunners who if you would place them in the same scenario 6 years ago would be blowing up on their respective platforms are just kind of like known about in the speedrunning communities.
Yep.
Like the one that comes to mind is Suiji.
Hmm.
Um Suiji just fucking sorry, am I allowed to say that on the broadcast? I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
fucking care.
Excellent. He just kind of he did the meme thing where he just like came out of nowhere. He obviously ground Super Mario 64 into the dust, but
Hmm.
came out is like the top dog in 16 star, and like the videos that he posts on YouTube, like they do pretty well, and like he gets a lot of attention from the Super Mario 64 community, especially. But it's just like he doesn't see the thousands of viewers that he would have if he had been doing this 6 or 8 years ago.
It's
And
funny
it's kind of a
you
shame.
brought him. It's funny you brought him up because now he's averaging like 1,000 viewers ever since like the 16-star record. Like
Yeah,
I'm
and I
seeing
guess
all of the huge speedrunners in his chat now. Like, people are making videos on him, and so that really helped.
right.
But yeah,
See,
the lead up to
that's
there
the thing you need.
was not like that. Yeah, I
Right.
remember watching
Yeah.
him, and he would only be like 200, which is a lot, but
And
it's
that's
not
the funny
like.
thing, right? It's like the attention wasn't ever about like his journey to get to being the best at Super Mario 64.
Hmm.
His the reason that he is popular now is because he achieved it,
Hmm.
and then a bunch of news sources and stuff like reported on it and said like this guy has completely killed Super Mario 64 16 star. And you've
Hmm.
got like content creators that people know like Simply and people like that making videos on him. So it's like it's a result of like bigger content creators
Like
making
shouting
note of
out the
this
little
thing.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I always kind of thought about doing that myself. I don't know if I quite have the clout of like a Simply or like a, somebody like Liam. Like I don't know if
Hmm.
I have quite the numbers for that. But I always kind of saw that this is the direction that speedrun content was going, and I always kind of felt bad. So I wanted to be in that position where I was the bigger content creator that kind of pointed out the smaller speedrun content creators, and I wanted to think about like how to lift them up. Um, that was something that I always tried to do. And I kind of did it with like Fall Guys, which is not speedrunning really, but um, I always thought like if I was going to do content to kind of give back to the speedrunning community, it would be that because yeah, there are a lot of people that kind of bust ass and like do really well in their speed game, and just it just doesn't have the same kind of reward that it did before. So
Yeah, because if you're a content creator and you want to report on like someone who's not getting attention, you still want to make it a story because you need your viewers to care and then they can do that. So,
yep,
like, still
exactly.
most people probably won't. Part of the reason why I'm doing this was no, I'm not big at all, but if this somehow like boosted popularity, I'd like to interview smaller people and get their name out there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, so many people deserve recognition that they just don't get.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a shame, but also it just makes sense. That's how content goes. When
Yeah.
communities get too big and there's so many names, you have to stand out, and it's hard to do that when there's 100,000 people
Yeah, exactly.
plus.
And already with like speedrunning itself is a pretty niche thing to do. Like
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of all the things that you can find on Twitch, speedrunning is this tiny, tiny, tiny little slice of pie compared to it all now. So, but it is kind of interesting to see that speedrunning and streaming were running synonymous. Like they benefited each other so well, especially in the early days, and now, especially since the pandemic, I think it's kind of blown up into this thing that like anybody can do for whatever niche they might have. So,
Hmm.
a lot of the focus of the platform has been pulled away from that, unfortunately. So, or fortunately, I
Yeah,
kind of
it's
think
good
that
and
it's a
bad.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's
because like when
overall a
people
good thing. It just sucks if you're starting out and don't
yeah,
have like the content brain. Like,
overall it is a good thing,
yeah.
absolutely. Like when people ask me what I do, I usually tell them that I make YouTube videos, and if they are like really keen on that, they'll be like, oh, like, well, what kind of stuff do you do? And then I'll usually be like, okay, have you heard of Twitch? And the answer that I've gotten in the last couple of years has been yes, but before that it was like, no, what's that? I remember my grandma called it Twerk TV. I was like, no, don't call it
Torque.
that, please. It's not called Twerk TV. um
Mm,
but
that's a
just this
scary
idea
place.
that this
Torque
idea
TV.
that like Twitch exists, right? And then if they have heard of it, I'm like, I think that everybody should stream. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, if you have a hobby, just a little bit of spare time and like a camera, you can stream literally whatever you want. And there's a community out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like they might not find you right away. Twitch is really bad at discovery. We all know that. But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't need to be about making money either. It's just like if you want to find someone out there in the world somewhere, there's 8 billion people out there now.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to find someone who's interested in the thing that you are to the same degree that you are, you will almost certainly find it on Twitch.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the most important thing if you're gonna like content can come later, but if you just want to stream or do whatever you do, it's important that you do it for fun. Like
Yeah,
don't do it for money. That
absolutely.
that you're not gonna enjoy yourself then.
Yeah.
Like you do it for fun, and then if it gets big and then you want to, like then yeah, but like I've always said if I did this for money, I would have stopped 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be worth my time at all. I put such a
It's
huge time
tough.
investment for no cash, but it's because I like it, and
Right.
that's how you should go into it.
I definitely agree. Yeah. And then I mean, speaking from somebody who is kind of on the other side, and this is my main job now,
Hmm.
it does put a damper on it a little bit because it doesn't feel like something you necessarily want to do. Although I do still want to do this all the time. Like streaming is the best job in the world. Like I'm not even gonna beat around the bush on that. But it also feels like something you have to do. And as
Hmm.
soon as you kind of add that label to it, it like makes things very scary. It's also very like um insecure job to have because you never really know if like what you're doing is going to remain relevant enough to be able to sustain it.
Hmm.
And then you put yourself in a position where like, can I do this forever? That's like a constant question in the back of my mind. So
Yeah, like you
um
you could just lose everything at any time because that's just how the internet is, and
it
it'll
sure
be like
is. Yeah.
this constant anxiety in the back of your mind, like what if?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that.
that's why I say that you should never just do it for the money. Like
Hmm.
if you're not having fun with it, even if it is your job, you should probably step away
Yep.
because it'll eat you alive if you don't.
Yeah, doing it for fun is definitely just the most important thing.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that's why all of these people that aren't famous that are still doing it, they enjoy it, and that's all that matters.
That's right.
All right, this was an awesome tangent, but where were we? Like Mario World,
Yeah.
Odyssey, like holy shit, where are we?
Oh my, yeah. We've barely scratched the surface on like my actual speedrunning history, I
Yeah,
suppose, right?
but hey, this is all about tangents. That's what I say.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, I'm all about that. I
this is
love that.
unscripted. We just talk about whatever comes to mind, and hey, that was a good conversation. I'll take it, but it definitely feels
Yeah,
like it's reached its climax. So we should probably get back to the speedrunning side of things.
sure thing. Yeah, let's go.
So were we in like 2018? Just started Mario World. You
Oh
got
yeah.
into
So
Odyssey around then.
2018, yeah, 2018 was like I found Super Mario Odyssey.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I bought the game. It was a Mario game, and I love Mario games. So I bought the game when it first came out. I beat it 100%. I remember being really frustrated that there were way too many things to buy in the shop and not enough coins to do it by the time I got to the end. So I remember like looking up a YouTube video to grind coins really fast, and the best way at the time was to do that one sub area in Bowser's Kingdom where you like climb the beanstalk and you just
Hmm.
like let
And
the
you get like
rocket flowers take you
200. Yeah,
forward.
I did that too.
Yep, yep. There was no other way to grind coins at the time. TM.
Mm.
But
Foreshadowing.
that's I did all that. Yeah, I did all that. Beat the game 100%. And as soon as I did, I was still kind of a normie then. I was still working in kitchens. So I put it down, went back to my life. And then 6 months later, the whole being put out of work thing happened. I found Microvita. I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I tried. And I remember my first run of Super Mario Odyssey any percent was like I basically just brought a notepad out and I wrote down the names of the stars that he or the moons, I guess, that he got in what order he got them, and then I just set out to do it myself. And at this time, there were no huge glitches. There was no like major out of bounds stuff. I actually don't think there were any clips in the any percent run at the time, which is pretty interesting because you go out of bounds a lot now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like really, really rudimentary. It was really just like these are the fastest stars if you connect the dots. Sorry, moons. I keep saying stars. These are the fastest moons if you just connect the dots, get to the end of the game. GG.
Hmm.
So I just copied his route and I just did it over and over again. My first run was like a 147 or something like that. It took me like a month or two to get affiliate on Twitch and also to get down to like a 110 or something like that. And I just remember being kind of captivated by the other categories. I never really stayed in the same place for very long. I remember my first crowning achievement in Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning was like maybe 6 or 8 months after I got into it, and I got the World Peace World Record on
Hmm.
1.2 at the time, which was pretty cool. It was like I want to say like a 109 or something like that. I don't know. Does that sound right? Maybe not. 119, 118. Yeah, it's
That's
not down
pretty
to
quick
109 yet.
from starting to like world record level in one of the most popular games at the time.
I was pretty surprised by it, but that's kind of how I operate. I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing. I don't know if I even have ADHD, but it's a very hyperfixation type of mindset. It's why I got so good at speedrunning and kind of built a name for myself is because like if I want something, I won't think about anything else. There was a period of time where I was like waking up, sitting down at my computer, flicking on the switch and just playing the same kingdom like 6 times, 8 times over until I just didn't make any mistakes, and then moving on to the next one. Like it was full blown, full time job, practice mode. That's the mindset you got to have if you want to be the
Hmm.
best at a game. Sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
15 hours a day,
yep,
same thing over and over.
yep,
Yep, that's
yep.
how it
And
goes.
unfortunately for Odyssey, there is now, but you have to have a modded Switch. But back then, especially, there was no tools for
Hmm.
practice. Like you couldn't just like immediately reset the level. So like it was a lot of wasted time too, because if you wanted to practice nut clip, for example, nut clip is like you use the moon inside the nut to like clip out of bounds, but it requires the moon grab animation, which only happens if it's the first time you've collected the moon. So you needed to like copy the save file, the fresh save file in Wooded Kingdom a bunch of times. When you got down to the end of the list, you just have to like recopy the fresh file again because you could only do it once and it auto saves as soon as you collect the moon. So stuff like that. There was a
Hmm.
lot of that.
That does
um,
not sound fun.
it wasn't great, but the things you do for the love of speedrunning. I remember doing a lot of that with Kirby as well, um, because it was very preliminary as well. When a speed game is brand new and there are no tools to help you grind, like you kind of have to do all that manually and mentally yourself. So um, boy, do I remember that as well.
Hmm.
Many hours just like dedicated to the craft of like finding the quickest routes, finding the best ways to do it, grinding those levels down, and then like when the stream time finally came, you turn on the camera and you just keep going. Basically, um, yeah, that's the speedrun grind set, baby.
Hmm. It sure is. We're all guilty of it.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah. How many times do you think you've attempted a flagpole glitch in your life?
attempted
Hmm.
thousands,
Right. Yeah,
maybe
you
even
don't
tens
even
of
need to
thousands. I
have,
don't know.
and I mean, you've probably successfully done just as many, time or like divided by 10 or whatever.
Yeah,
But like,
I was gonna say amount of times I've hit it, it's probably like 1,000.
yep.
Attempted. I don't keep track of that.
Nor would you want to
No, of
unless you
course
go
not.
insane. I've probably reset a Super Mario Odyssey speedrun more than that, like,
Hmm.
5 or 6 thousand attempts. It's wild. So
Yeah. Do you have an attempt counter on your splits?
It's unfortunately a little bit cloudy because Super Mario Odyssey has gone through a number of rule changes. There was
Mm.
like the 1.0 versus 1.2 dilemma, and then 1.3 kind of meshed them together, and then that wasn't a problem anymore. But then I made new splits for that, and so it's kind of lost to time. And then, of course, I also did all the different categories. I think I had like maybe 50 attempts or so on all moons. I had like 100% attempts. But then when you get into like Darker Side was almost 1,000. World Peace was like 3 or 4 thousand, and then any percent was like 5 or 6 thousand in total. And then there's Dark Side, which I think I did like 200 runs of or something.
Yeah, I can tell you
So
about the tens of thousands of attempts I have, but my games are a lot uh, quicker,
yeah,
so it's hard to compare like
yeah, 5 minute
play
runs.
time to attempts.
Yeah, but
Because one attempt for
it,
me can be 5 seconds.
yep, exactly. Yeah, you just like you miss the timing on the right press in the underground section of 1-1 and it's just over.
Hmm.
Yep,
That is indeed how it works.
yep. So I definitely feel that, and I did a little bit of Super Mario Brothers myself. I got the sub 5. I
Yeah,
made that a bit of a challenge for myself.
in
So
like a month.
Yeah, it took about a month. It took about a month. It
Yeah,
wasn't too
I
bad.
say anyone can get a sub 5 in a week if they like if they put time into it, if they try.
Yeah.
Like
If
I don't
that's
think
all
it's
they
that
do.
hard. People think it's hard. I don't think so.
Yeah. I think it helps to have like I remember we've distinctly had a conversation about like the hardware that you use and whether you use a CRT and like how playing on a monitor has a little bit of delay and stuff like that in comparison
It
to a TV.
can. Like RetroTinks might be like 1 frame at most now. And also
Yeah,
like the monitor could make it 0 too.
right. And RetroTinks are very good, yeah.
Mhm.
Um but the thing you said I remember distinctly is that you can kind of adjust to that too. Like even
Yes.
if it is just 1 frame off, you can also kind of trick your brain into like being able to play around that.
Mhm.
As long as you have the actual timing of the inputs down, it doesn't matter, right? So I remember you were saying that you were able to get, you get the flagpole glitch or whatever on a completely different hardware setup than you're used to, and
Yeah, I
it's
tried
a
the
matter of
monitors at
like,
SGDQ last year with the
yeah,
RetroTinks, and I noticed there was some delay of some sort, but
yep,
I could still hit everything. And then like I played
exactly,
on WeVC, which definitely has 1 frame of input lag, and I can kind of do everything, but WeVC has its own set of other differences, like
yeah,
different frame rate slightly and weird sound
just
effects, and
different hardware.
Wiimote is weird to play on.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And it's interesting that like even a game that doesn't have necessarily like frame perfect inputs can still have that problem. Like, but it's also kind of miraculous like how the whole muscle memory programming thing works and like how we're able to overcome that rather easily.
Hmm.
Like the thing that comes to mind in Odyssey is sorry, DSS, Dino Skip Skip. So like the trick that happens at the very beginning of Cascade where you have to like land Mario on this tiny little polygon on the wall that acts as floor so you can get another jump. um, I don't like I use like audio cues and visual cues for it, but at the same time, like it's so ingrained into my hands, like the timing of every single input that you need to make that trick work that like, you give it like 4 or 5 tries on like new hardware and it's just comes back. It's so
Hmm.
wild.
Yeah,
So
brains are weird, but
they sure
they're
are.
sure cool too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. People do some pretty fascinating things, that's for sure.
especially like if you have to adjust to a completely different, like if you're gonna run a GDQ in person, like their whole setup's gonna be different to you, so you have
That's
to
right.
like adjust on the fly almost. And I mean, you can do it. It might be a bit difficult, but it's just
Yep.
something you have to do.
Yeah, and
So it's cool that they can do that.
they typically give you like a little green room, and it's funny they
Hmm.
call it a green room because it's like a corner in the room of the convention space that just has like green tape around it.
Hmm.
And they sit you down at the TV. It's like this is your practice space. You can use it if you want, and that's like your preliminary. But even that setup is probably different than the one you're going to be playing on stage.
Hmm.
So it is what it is. But
And then the practice room's different, and
yep,
like all the atmospheres are different too, which plays a factor. So it's like, all right, brain, do your thing.
yeah, exactly. Oh man,
Hmm.
did you submit for GDQ?
I did. Uh, I don't expect much. I didn't really put in too much effort, so
Yeah, same with me.
uh,
Yeah.
I just submit the same Mario step every time. I've gotten a Mario one in once, and that was when it was online. So
Right. Yeah, that's so funny, right? That's exactly my position too. I've gotten Odyssey in twice to a main event, but they were both during
online.
the COVID days.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky last year that Seth Bling had me be on the Mario World and All Stars Ace Run.
oh
I was
yeah,
player 3, so I got to be
very
on
cool.
stage for the first time, and maybe only time. I mean, I don't know how the future will look, so
Yeah,
at
you
least
you
I got
can't really
that out of
tell.
it.
Yeah. The only time I've been on the stage is been for commentary.
Yeah, you did a Ganon's run. I saw
Ganon's run,
that.
the darker side run, I
Hmm.
did commentary for. And then also the same event, I actually did the Kirby and the Forgotten Land run
Oh yeah.
by Shasta as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, a couple times up there. It's fun. Yeah, those events are really awesome.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know how I'd be like if I had like proper run on the stage, because I was nervous
yeah.
being player 3, and I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to hold some buttons, and I was still like, ugh, this is weird. I know 100,000 people are watching me right now.
Right? Yeah.
Hmm.
I suppose my experience as a content creator has given me some tools to kind of combat that but that doesn't stop the fact that like the first time stepping up on stage, even today, even to this day, still a little bit of the butterflies. Um, but I feel like it's kind of this like this roller coaster ride of sorts. You get up on the stage, your nerves are really high. You start talking about the game a little bit. You know that DSS is coming. We're talking from an Odyssey standpoint. You either get it or you miss it. Either way, your nerves just kind of like shoot back down. You're just like, okay, now all I'm doing is playing the game. There's no pressure. I don't really need to live up to any expectation because all the people that are watching me have never really seen this happen before. So I am their guide into the grand wonders that are Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning tricks. So
Hmm.
so it kind of you kind of smooth it out after that, and you're like, this is totally fine. Like,
Yeah. The
um,
difference for me is the SGQ thing I did. It was a race, so you do kind of have to be
oh
nervous the whole time
yeah, I
because
suck at
there is an
races.
expectation.
Yeah, I suck at races so bad.
Hmm. I'm
Um,
good at races, but not when it's GDQ.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's an added level of pressure I can't prepare for.
And then
Really,
there's people like Jay who can somehow
just get the world
without a
record.
yeah, it was Super Mario Galaxy 1, I think, right?
As to any
It
percent.
was 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the GDQ this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. And I mean, it was at home, but still,
Yeah,
like,
like it is your setup, which helps significantly, but you do know, first of all, you're in a race, and second of all, there's 100,000 people watching you,
yeah,
and you know that, so that does not help
yeah,
your mentality. At least I
absolutely.
can't imagine it does.
I mean, unless you're the right kind of person, I think some people do really well under pressure. There are a few people who like are really good at Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning, um, but excel in competitive formats over the other people because like people like maybe the people who have the world record are better in that kind of like solo environment where they're just doing their own thing and they're doing their runs and they're getting in the groove. And then there are people who are just like consistently better at getting the same time over and over again. Like I remember that whenever there was like a Super Mario Odyssey competitive thing, like Pace, for example, in
Hmm.
2019, Stravos was the one who won it, but Chaos was like arguably the better speedrunner at the time. It's just that Stravos was the racer; like he always
The
won
more
the
consistent
tournaments.
one.
Yeah, for some reason
Hmm.
he always had the nerves to be able to do races better than Chaos did, and so he always won.
Yeah,
It's weird how people work in different ways like that, you know?
it's funny you bring up pace because like at midnight today, it was announced big SMB1 tournament at pace.
Ooh,
Oh, I'm so excited.
yeah, you're getting in on that, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, I went to
Yeah,
pace last year and it was really fun. Like
yeah,
it's like GDQ, but like
smaller.
smaller, which helps.
Yeah,
Like you can just talk and hang out with everyone a lot easier. You can go do stuff out in the world.
for
But
sure.
yeah, there's like an actual SMB1 tournament. Like I don't know if you've seen the hardware. Flibbity Dibbity makes these videos where he hooks up these consoles to a program, and then you can display all of the runners on one TV,
Oh,
like one screen, and you can see all the Mario's go. So you can see like how far ahead and behind people are.
that's
So
really
that
cool.
yeah, it's so sick. I hope it like that technology takes off more. I don't like it's a lot to make, so I don't know rele- how easy it would be to like do it for other stuff, but like that technology is going to be at pace this year.
That's
Like
awesome.
it wasn't like he made videos. Like the first one was last year. I can go because I was actually at pace. Funny, but and it wasn't there. But yeah, it'll be the first time it'll be streamed live too with that technology.
Yeah.
Pace will stream
Are
it.
we talking about the same guy who like put together all of like the world record Super Mario Brothers runs like in the same video or whatever?
That was me actually, but
Oh,
unless you're talking about like all the Marios on one screen, not like
yeah.
just all the game captures, that was either like all of his attempts for 458 or all of the sub fives. He made those two videos.
Right. Those are the ones I'm
Okay,
thinking of.
if
Yeah.
those are the ones you're thinking of, then yeah, that was him. Same
Okay.
guy.
Yeah,
So
that's some cool
it's
stuff.
that, but like live race format.
That's amazing, actually.
Hmm.
I'm amazed that that exists.
I don't understand how it works either, but I saw it, so
Yeah,
it's there. It works.
it sure is real.
It sure
Um,
is.
I think that something like that is necessary if like speedrun racing is to become a thing. I know
Hmm.
that GSA, Global Speedrun Association, is doing like a really at least they're committing to the idea of like making speedrun competitions more mainstream and like
Hmm.
something that can be viable for, competitive players to, maybe make some change doing or whatever. Um, but I think that this is my personal opinion anyway. I think that speedrun racing kind of falls short in one main area, and it's that there is no like direct influence aside from the fact that you're racing and you might be nervous
Hmm.
that like a speedrun race really has. Um, if you have two people who are really good at the game, the first one makes a mistake and the second one doesn't, then player number two just wins.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. That's just kind of my opinion on speedrun
Yeah.
racing is like it's pretty boring for the most part because they're just like unless the race is really close,
Hmm.
it's kind of a blowout. There's not a lot of like intrigue to it. Um, but that's why I really like what ESA has been doing, and some other speedrun organizations have kind of got on board with it in recent times. Is the break the record
Hmm.
style
Yeah, they're all
where
LTA lifetime, or is it LTA? Yeah, lifetime attack. I think that's right.
yeah, now they even have an acronym for it. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that
I
that
didn't know
format.
about
Yeah.
that. But yeah, the idea that you just get all the speedrunners, the top speedrunners together, and they kind of just do what they usually do, which is grind out attempts and just try to get the best time
Hmm.
that they can in the time slot that they're allotted.
Yeah.
I think that makes way more sense.
Hmm.
Obviously, you kind of still have to wait for the hype moments. You have to wait for a person to get on a run before you can kind of highlight them and focus on them and then see how they do and stuff like that. But it lets every player kind of play the game the way that they know how to. So they're much more likely to be kind of in their prime. All of
Hmm.
them are in their prime rather than putting them on the spot and expecting them to do one no reset and have it be like amazing. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
With
I
no
love that
influence
format.
from anybody else. Yeah, it's my favorite format
Hmm.
for competitive speedrunning as well.
Yeah, I've been watching all of them. I'm gonna participate in one tomorrow, actually. Uh,
That's really cool.
GSA is doing an SMB3 one, and I needed an excuse to improve my warpless time in that. I haven't played in 4 years, so I think I could just PB pretty easily tomorrow. So that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, for races, I think the way that Flippity DBD's doing it, where you see them all on one screen and you can see how close it is, that makes races cool and intriguing
Yeah.
to an audience because you can like see right there, like, oh, he's a second behind. Oh, mistake, catch up, and especially because like SMB1 specifically is so short, like
Yeah.
anything can happen like right there, so it's more intriguing that way. But yeah, I think at Pace they'll also have an LTA for us as well. Like after like they showcase the technology and then there's like an LTA thing as well.
That's
So
awesome.
you'll see both
That's
and
yeah, that's really
the
good.
best of both worlds, quite literally. So yeah, I'm
Absolutely, yeah.
excited for that.
Me
God,
too.
Pace is gonna be so cool.
I'm a bit curious how something like Odyssey would be able to implement that. Like we're obviously really far away from that technology being a thing. I know that Super Mario 64 has something similar.
The
Like I
closest to Mario 64 I know is they have the task competitions, and what they can
right.
do is they can have everyone's like tasks. They can put it into one file and like change all the Mario's colors, and you can see them all scatter
Right.
and see who did it faster. That's like the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah. So it's still even a little bit far away from that.
Hmm.
But the cool thing about that, I remember watching some of them is like you can get the camera like taken out of its
Hmm.
original context and kind of have it like float around the level and like watch watch the renders play out
Hmm.
together, not from behind Mario necessarily. So like that kind of stuff is really cool. I really
Oh yeah,
do appreciate that. But
yeah. I love those task comp videos, and I
yeah,
actually hang out a lot with the Mario 64 tasters. So I know when they like make a new video, like they have this thing where they have like this program that tries to get to a star the fastest. It has to be short because it's like brute forcing stuff and all that.
yeah,
But yeah, and then they'll compare it to like the previous record, and this is why it's a frame faster.
yeah.
It's like, oh yeah,
I
yeah,
can
that
definitely
stuff
see
is
that
super
frame.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you can. I mean, Mario 64 is lucky enough to be at 30 FPS, so you can see the difference between frames there.
that's true.
Now, like I think Mario Odyssey is 60 and what I do 60, so it's a little harder.
Just about every Mario game is, except for 64. I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
sure what happened there.
Now,
Lots
Nintendo
of like
64
unoptimized stuff.
is just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think they were more focused on getting things into 3D than they were
Mm-hmm.
optimizing the 3D experience.
a little bit, but they still made Mario 64, so
That's true.
they were doing something right,
Yeah.
at least. And
You done much speedrunning of 64?
I have more recently. I actually really like practicing it. It's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I agree.
um, I've been doing like 70 star stuff. So I almost have a sub 1 hour. It's like 104
Nice.
or something, but yeah, I just like practicing it because the movement's so fun to practice, and
Yeah,
I've gotten sick of practicing Mario 1 every day. So I
I
just
don't
rather
blame you.
practice
Yeah.
something else.
See, Mario 64 is a great. Like as much as I hate the game,
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's a love-hate relationship because it's very laggy and it's got the controller that you use is like maybe not fantastic, but also at the same time like you wouldn't want to use anything else. Like it's uniquely catered to that crappy controller a little bit. Like I don't have a what's the name of the Hori, the gamepad.
Hmm.
I don't have a Hori, but what I do have is an N64 controller with like a GameCube stick rigged into it.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is that like it's actually worse to play with that in
Oh.
most regards because it's almost like too stiff. So if you were to try and go for something like texture setup in Womp's Fortress, I couldn't even like walk across the wooden bridge with the modified gamepad because the stick was too sensitive. So I would like always fall off the wooden bridge. Whereas this like really crappy, kind of stiff, kind
Hmm.
of like hard to the stick is really flimsy and stuff like that. Like that stick is actually better because it's like less sensitive.
It's
It's
also that
really
stick is
weird.
so tall, so you have
Yeah,
more like like
you have a little
no
bit
full
more.
options. Analog, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, so
And
that's why
it's
people just swap between that and the Hori for throws because yeah, that stick does suck for spinning around because it's so
yeah,
long.
and it's got so many dead zones. So
Hmm.
like,
Yeah,
if you try and spin it around really fast, you just get nothing out of it.
it can be. But yeah, the other thing why that controller works so well is because it has like the little divots, so you can
Yep,
like hold straight up or straight right, and that
yep,
makes running it so much easier. Because like I know in Odyssey you can't really do that. You just have
that's
like your
true.
whole
Yeah,
3D space.
yeah, and it's funny because when I first started playing some of the other 3D Mario games, I was like, God, I hate these notches. They're the worst. And then it wasn't until you like play the games for a little while. Galaxy was the first one that I really started
Oh yeah, that has
grinding
the
that had
nunchuck with notches. Yeah.
not yeah, the nunchuck with notches. Like the only controller, if you actually go back, the only controller that Nintendo's made that doesn't have notches is the Switch controller, which is weird. But I remember the notches being really annoying until I kind of understood how they worked, and like a lot of your trick setups in speedrunning are going to be based around like, okay, well if the camera looks like this, then I hold into this notch and it works every time. Or like if I need to be going in this direction, like I can kind of hold this far away from the notch to get the angle that I want and stuff like that. Like you kind of play around that. Whereas with Odyssey, it's all just vibes based. You're like,
Hmm.
I need to be holding in this direction, and I hope that I get the exact direction that I need. It means that you can't make setups where like for example, the cannonless setup in Womp's Fortress. Like there isn't anything like that in Odyssey necessarily. There's a lot more timing based tricks than there are like perfectly precise angles and stuff like that.
Hmm. I've tried
So,
on like the Switch, just like in handheld mode. Like if I'm at the airport or something, sometimes I'll do 16 star runs for fun on the All
oh yeah,
Stars thing. And if you try to do like yeah the cannonless, it's
and you can't
hard
even do
because
BLJs.
there's no
I think.
notches. Yeah, you can on that, but
Oh, Virtual Console or like
yeah,
the
you
the
on the
Nintendo Switch
online.
Online.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like the Joy Cons don't have notches either, so
Yep.
like you can't do stuff like that. Well, you can. It's a lot harder though.
Yes.
So I
You
definitely
kind of got to pray.
understand. Yeah, I was at an airport recently trying to do it, and it took like 10 tries, and I was like, I love notches.
Yeah.
This makes me miss them so much.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I kind of understood the notches and like I think the main reason that it sucked so much for me is because spin pounds are such a prominent thing in Odyssey. So you're just like wailing on that control stick in like a perfectly circular notch this whole time,
Hmm.
and there's just it's so smooth and so fluid. Um, and the camera is also free flowing in Odyssey as well, so you're kind of used to this like flowy atmosphere, and then you switch to 64 and the camera is very rigid,
Hmm.
and the control stick is also very rigid, so it's a bit of a different playing experience, but you
Yeah,
get
but
used to it.
like the speedruns are all tailored to its experience, which
Yes.
makes it good for almost anything.
exactly.
unless
Yeah,
you like play on different hardware, and then it's like, well, this is why it's not as good on this, and you should play on this.
that's right.
Because like you could. I remember when I started, I tried some 16-star runs on emulator with an Xbox controller that doesn't have notches.
Nope, it doesn't.
So you're like making it harder for yourself almost, not
And
playing
that's the
on what it's
right.
tailored for.
That's the interesting thing is
Hmm.
like there's this whole I don't know if you can even call it like a controversy or not, but like there's definitely conversations within the Super Mario 64 community about like should the N64 version be considered the premier version? Like is there a genuinely justifiable reason why all the top runners play on N64 when it's actually the slower one because
Hmm.
of unoptimization and stuff like that? But I think there's two reasons for that. And like one is that um they do kind of have a point when they say like being able to manipulate the camera to avoid lag on the original hardware is kind of like a skill within itself. But then the
Hmm.
second thing is like if you grew up playing Super Mario 64 with that controller, you try to play it on emulator with something else and it's just going to all fall apart. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like you're playing the same game anymore. So,
Yeah, like I think we VC's faster because there's no lag. So
yeah.
that's like the argument. But I know it's like an official release, but my argument is it's still emulated.
Hmm.
Like that's still an emulator. So
Absolutely
I
it
mean,
is. Yeah.
you can like I know SB1 combines the emulation and that, but we do it because emulation for the NES is perfect.
Right.
But the Wii VC emulation isn't taking into effect the lag that maybe something like a web emulator or like computer emulator would do
Yeah.
that. So it's different. Like that's my argument to that
Yep.
discussion because I know it's an official release, but it's not. It's emulating and it's not a perfect emulation. So
That's
it's
right.
like that like should be
It's
its
an
own separate thing.
and it's funny because it's an optimized emulation. So
Hmm.
like the casual player would be like, this might even be a better Super Mario 64 experience because I don't have to fight with like the sub making the screen flash at like 1 frame per second. But
Hmm.
like for speedrunners, that's like, no, no, no. It's like taking away from the integrity of what the
Hmm.
speedrun is supposed to be, which is
Exactly.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
uh,
how I see that whole argument. But I understand the argument, but
yeah,
I always think like original hardware should be number one because that's how it was programmed in its space should be like the OG how you should do things. Like if
I
there's
think so
perfect
too.
emulation on computer like NES games, yeah, that's fine because it's perfect, but you should always take the original. That's like the NES runs at 60.09 frames per second, not flat 60. So if you play on Switch, it's slower. Like you're
Right,
playing in slow motion essentially. So if you get like barely a sub 5, it's going to be a 5 flat because of that frame rate. But we're not
right,
going to adjust the time. We're going to keep the real game time because you should always like use the original console as a priority. Plus,
right.
like in real time, it's slower. That's just how it is. But
Yep, yep.
that's just an example. Like if there was something that suddenly made the game run at 61 FPS for some reason, like that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on the matter, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely something to playing on original hardware and keeping kind of the integrity of, what it is that you're playing and like not fiddling around with it. Like
Hmm.
speedrunners, I think all kind of agree that as soon as you kind of modify the hardware from the outside, then it can give you an unfair advantage to people who just so.
The internet kind of cut out there a little bit.
Oh yeah, I didn't move my mouse in time and the screen kind of froze, but like
Oh, okay.
I was basically just saying like yeah, people who play it on original hardware if like you adjust the hardware from the outside in any way, even if that's just an emulator, then it can sometimes give them an unfair advantage and I
Hmm.
think that's totally valid
Yeah,
criticism
like
to have.
if there's some sort of advantage, like I like the way Mario 64 does it. Like you can run all things, but they're separated into their own things. I like that. Like
Yeah,
in SMB1 there's a PAL release of the game and it plays completely differently. And they
right.
used to be combined, which doesn't make sense to me because it's like All Stars. Like actually PAL's more different than All Stars, funnily enough. But
Do
so
they not have the same like tricks and stuff? I've actually not looked into it very much.
the PAL version, you can actually get a full flagpole glitch on every flagpole. At least the task
Oh,
can. So it's actually faster. The task for PAL is faster, just because of
that's
that. But
interesting.
yeah, it plays completely differently. Mario jumps slightly higher. If
Huh.
you like do a bump, you get a much higher exposition. Like there's a bunch of minute differences, but I finally like separated the NTSC and PAL leaderboards. Like I was the one to finally like last year, I separated them, and God was that a lot of work. But now people can like play the PAL version separately and like have a time. Like you can play
Right,
NTSC and PAL now, and like it's just like that. Like it's a different. It's an official release of the game, but it's different. So you separate it,
right.
and then you can run either version if you want. Like I think that's exactly how it should be done.
Yeah, I agree. I think it kind of brings into, every community does their own ruling,
Hmm.
in a bubble, basically, separate of like the opinions of other games and other communities and stuff like that. Um, which I think is fair. The people who are going to know the best about their game are the people who are running it. But it has, in my experience anyway, it has kind of created some situations that make the game sometimes a little bit less accessible when you first approach it from the outside. The perfect example of that in my mind is Super Mario Galaxy, um, because that game has gotten really optimized in the last like 3 years, especially. Um, but the changes that have been made to it have made it very inaccessible to somebody who wants to start speedrunning Galaxy now. Like, if you do not have the tools to do it, you are going to be very discouraged by the fact that you are going to lose like 20 minutes now as a result of playing on your English Super Mario Galaxy disc. And that's because the most optimal version of Super Mario Galaxy is the Japanese Wii U Virtual Console. So you need a
Mm.
Wii U, you need to be able to homebrew that Wii U, you need to know how to do that. You need to know how to like set up like a save file from a different region onto your homebrewed Wii U. So that all on its own is already a pain.
Hmm.
And that saves you like 4 minutes. But then on top of that, you also have the fact that like the two player, the co-star mode or whatever, is the optimal way to play the game because you get like a cheater button basically. Like you get an extra jump on top of the jumps that you can already do if you use the two-player version. You also have a way to pick up star bits a lot easier than that in that mode.
Yeah, don't
So
people like
like
tape their remotes together or something?
exactly, yeah. So like
Yeah.
if you didn't have more than one Wii remote, now you got to have two.
Hmm.
There's a lot of like hurdles to kind of overcome to be what could be considered good at
Hmm.
Super Mario Galaxy, and I think that kind of optimization is like interesting to observe,
Hmm.
but if you want to do it for yourself, like there's a lot more hurdles to have to go over, and it kind of makes the game less accessible. So while I think that they have made those decisions because they want the game to be as optimal as possible, and that in itself is like the ultimate goal of speedrunning, it sometimes is like it's um, like a crabs in a bucket mentality. Like if you want Galaxy to be the kind of game that people want to speed run, you're going in the wrong direction as a
Hmm.
result of that stuff, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah, there needs to be some sort
it
of
kind of
balance
is what it
between
is.
accessibility and speed, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. Like the perfect example of that is Metroid Prime. No, sorry. What was the Metroid game that came out recently? The 2D one.
Oh, Dread.
Dread, right? Metroid Dread. That's the perfect example of that because in order to be like really optimal at that game, you need to mash a lot.
Mm.
And so they changed their leaderboards to allow for turbo controllers
Oh, cool.
because of the mashing that is
Hmm.
required for that. And like that is an accessibility step that like if you're the kind of person who's like sitting on a mighty throne being like, I can mash the fastest, I'm going to get carpal tunnel earlier than all of you. Like, that's just such a weird thing, like a
Hmm.
weird hill to die on. You know what I mean? So I think that was a really brilliant thing to do to make the speedrun more accessible without really cutting into the experience of playing Metroid Dread, you
Yeah,
know?
because with an accessibility option, you're not limiting anyone. Like anyone can use it then. So like even if you were a fast
Right.
smasher, now you just use turbo and save yourself the time.
Exactly.
Now, like certain games probably shouldn't like if you're not mashing the whole time, if it's like one or two sections. I
Yeah.
understand, but I don't know how much you have to mash in that game, but if it's like constantly throughout the entire thing, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it is. It is constantly throughout the entire
Okay.
thing.
I've never
Just
seen a run
about
of it, so
just about every boss, and you're encountering a boss like every 5 minutes. So
well, yeah.
yeah. So they made a really good choice there. And I think it did help kind of prolong, like, again, we had this conversation at the very beginning. Speedrun games have a little bit of a shelf life.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a couple weeks, sometimes it's a couple months, where they are in the limelight for a little bit and then they kind of fall because of one reason or another. But that definitely helped get more people interested in playing it, which I thought
Mhm.
was a good idea. So
Did you run that game then? Is that why you know this?
I didn't know. I
Oh,
was an observer.
oh,
I
I see.
definitely watched some of the people that were vying for the world record. Samurai Man, if it's a
Mhm.
Nintendo game, he always goes for it.
Yep.
Um, but also like Oats and Goats and a couple others.
Mhm.
So I was an observer. And even though I didn't play, I'm still a nerd for speedrunning,
Of
especially
course,
Mario
yeah.
or Nintendo games.
I have a
So I
stream
followed along.
permanently on my well, not right now, not during interviews. I try to keep my focus here, but like if I'm stream anytime I'm streaming, now that I have like a little camera I put off to the side so you can see my setup, there's TV in my background. There's a stream on it always
Yep.
because like I'm speedrunning, but I also have to watch one. Like,
Yes.
but I also like background noise, so that's the primary reason, but I can't get away from it.
Yeah.
It's always there.
It's exactly how I feel as well.
Mhm.
No matter what I'm doing in my day, especially because I work from home, I've always got a stream on. So
Mhm. Yep. Um I remember because we talked about SMB1 a little earlier, but yeah, in 2019, I think, or 2020, I forget. There was one year you tried to like do like a different Mario game every month, and you did for like
yeah.
a few months, and that's why you did SMB1. Was that 2020 actually? Because it was
Um,
after GDQ.
it was after GDQ. I think it was 2020. Yeah, that sounds right. Because that would have been the same year that Fall Guys came out.
Then yeah,
Um, yeah, it was right. It was right before Fall Guys. Someone in the chat is saying.
yeah.
But yeah, I originally had it planned that I was gonna like switch to a new Mario like mainline console game every month.
Hmm.
But I was also still balancing it with Super Mario Odyssey as well, and it
Hmm.
just ended up being like way too much to
Too
try and
much.
focus on. And the goals that I was setting were probably a little bit too ambitious as well. But
I mean, you got
it
some
did
five
kind
in a
of
month, so it worked out.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
true. I
Hmm.
did. I wasn't grinding specifically SMB for like a week, like you said. I think anybody could probably do that. You're
Hmm.
right. Um, but
Like
it
it
was
took a
like,
month, but you were doing multiple things, so that's
yeah,
different.
exactly.
I specifically mean if you like put your time into it. I mean,
Yes.
because you brought up Micro, I remember for a 12-hour challenge he practiced SMB1. His first run was like a 501, first attempt ever, and
Yeah.
then like later he got sub 5, like a few attempts later. I was like,
Yep.
yep, it's that easy.
Still requires like some decent platforming
Yeah,
experience, I
I
would
mean he
say.
practiced for like 12 hours
Yeah.
just practicing, so that definitely helps a lot. But yeah,
Yeah.
like
12-hour
actual attempts was
challenges are
just instant.
12-hour challenges are pretty cool. The
I love
idea that
12-hour
you like,
challenges. I did Odyssey for a 12-hour challenge.
yeah, I've actually done a handful of them. Um, I don't think I could do a 12-hour challenge of the 2D games just because they're like really short. I would
Hmm.
rather just like pound out attempts of those. But I did do one for Super Mario 64 back in the day, Sunshine, Galaxy, and Galaxy 2. Um, the Galaxy 2 one was kind of rough. It was basically just do the run twice
Oh yeah, that
because that
run is
because that run
really
is so long.
fucking long. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that, but yeah, they're a super fun way to kind of break into a new game if that's what you want to do.
Hmm. Yeah,
But yeah.
it's been a while since I. There's usually like two a year, I think. I forget when the last one
Yeah,
was. I feel like I haven't heard from it in a while.
there's like a full-blown organized like day for them, isn't there?
Yeah, well, like a weekend.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Because I kind of just did them of my own fruition. I was just
Oh,
like, yeah,
okay.
let's just do a 12-hour challenge. Like, why not?
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Yeah, there's an
but
official thing that Golden runs.
right.
Like
Yeah.
he's like the creator of that, I think.
Hmm. And it's pretty cool. And I like that it's pretty free flowing. You can kind of do whatever you want with the time, like
Hmm.
whether you just pound out attempts for 12 hours or you do what Nitro did in practice. Um, yeah, all that
Yeah.
stuff is kind of cool. And it's interesting to see the different ways that people approach speedrunning in that regard as well. Like I used to say, people would come in when I'm playing Odyssey and be like, "Yeah, so I've been trying to get into speedrunning this game, and I finally got a 220 Cap Kingdom." And I'm like, "My guy, have you done anything else?"
Hmm.
Nope, just Cap Kingdom. I'm like, "You are gonna burn yourself out before you even finish the game." Like that is, and
Yep.
I mean, I guess it kind of works for some people, but like for me, if I was to just do each and every kingdom until I got my goal time, like you wouldn't even make it to the end. I'd get bored of that.
Hmm.
Like I want to play the game. I want to play the whole game. That's the whole
Yeah, that's the
point.
point. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting how people's brains work differently, I guess, in that regard. So,
Yeah, when I did Odyssey for the 12-hour challenge, I remember I just watched a video of the route and then
hmm
played the run. That's all I did.
yep.
And then I couldn't PB again after that. So my first attempt, after just spending like 4 hours browsing through a run looking at the route, was like 143.
hmm
And then that's all I've done so far. But hey, it was fun.
It is a
That
fun
that's
game.
that's how you do it. You play the whole game. Like
Yep.
you don't even have to like practice it. Just like your first attempt can just be blind playthrough if you really want. The fun part is the second attempt and getting all the gold
All the
splits.
golds. Yeah.
Although it
All
wasn't
the
that way for me. I sucked at Odyssey after that first run for some reason. That after practicing and doing that attempt, like there wasn't much time left in the 12 hours.
yeah,
Like
that
it is
makes
an hour
sense.
long run. Well, for me, an hour and a half plus. So.
Yep. That is very true. Yeah, and that kind of feeds back into like why races of that game were not very fun for me to participate in or to watch for that matter. It's just because
They're
like
so
you
long.
make yeah, there are enough like mistakes that you can make in Odyssey that can waste you like 30 seconds. And if you make one of those and your opponent just never does, then you lose.
Hmm.
Like it's just it's simple as that. So
Yep.
it's tough.
Yeah,
Tough
it
to be
can
a
be.
racer of Odyssey. But what do I know? There are people who will race, quote unquote, that like Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Legends game or whatever. So
I don't know
I
anything
guess you
about
can
that.
race anything. Oh boy.
Mhm.
Oh boy. I don't know. I don't think Summoning Salt has made a video on it, but there are definitely some YouTube videos out there chronicling like what speedrunning that game is like. It's just pure RNG.
Oh,
It's
great.
literal hell. It's literal hell.
Well, yeah, not the game for me then. I hate RNG more than
No,
anything. That's why
I'm
I
not a big fan
don't
of it
run
either.
SMP3 that much.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
like a
that's
Mario
true, right?
game, and I'm like, oh, I'm good at Mario games, and there's RNG, and I'm like, no, I don't like this.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because like in a platforming game, you know, the RNG can make or break things so easily. And it's nice when it like when the RNG happens on a run because like in a bad or like your best run has bad RNG in it because then you're like, okay, well as long as I don't get that bad RNG, then that's like, you know, 5 seconds or whatever that I save the next time I do this. But, you know, it is frustrating because you have no control over it.
Hmm.
And it's funny because this is coming from somebody who has kind of pivoted in my content anyway recently into something that is full blown RNG, which is the Kaizo Ironmon stuff.
Mm.
Um, but it's genuinely a breath of fresh air because instead of me blaming myself for all of the things that go wrong, I can, you know, just pass off all of that responsibility to the game being mean to me. So
Hmm.
it's been quite good for the mentals. I won't lie to you.
I suppose that helps.
Yeah.
You can ask questions too. I usually have like a Q&A thing at the end, but you can ask whenever. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, uh, where are we? Usually I go like a timeline of someone's like speedrunning career, but
Oh,
I don't
sure.
know
Yeah.
where we I don't know where
We've
we
been
are
kind of
anymore,
hopping all over the place, I guess.
which
Yeah.
is fine. I now I'm just confused and feel bad.
Yeah.
Like where are
That's
we?
okay. A brief summation here. I guess we can kind of catch us back up on my timeline.
Okay.
Super Mario World,
Hmm.
2008, back in the JTV days. Did that for a while as well as a couple other games. Didn't really have any way to record it or like submit it or anything. Uh, did my real life for a little while. Came back in 2018. Did Super Mario Odyssey. Kind of became a content creator.
Hmm.
Um, until I became full time in 2020. I was
Mm.
basically just doing Odyssey, a couple other things as well. Revisited Super Mario World, learned how to do some more strats, um, and finally got the elusive sub 11 that I'd been looking for a really long
No
time.
major glitches.
No major glitches. That's right.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
I
the
have like an
only.
1106. I think I did that for 12-hour
Yeah,
challenge too. Actually.
that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love Super Mario World speedruns. I don't know. There's something about like
It's
the
very
it's short and
accessible.
sweet. It's short and sweet, very accessible. Um, and I don't know. It's just the game that I grew up with. Um, so I have a very extreme fondness of Super Mario World. It's definitely my favorite game. It probably always will be.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think I came back and got the sub 11 like in 2019 or 2020 or something like that. And then recently, because Super Mario Odyssey was kind of not doing it for me in recent times, I like switched gears and like did a little bit of focus on Super Mario 64 and also on Super Mario World as well,
Mm-hmm.
just to bring those times down. I had like a 2D Tuesday and a 3D Thursday where I would
Mm.
play like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario World in the week in tandem. Um, and I ended up like learning how to do the orb glitch and the cloud glitch, which is stuff that I couldn't like I didn't have the resources to learn back in the day. Um, so that was really exciting. And then I ended up getting I think I ended up getting did I get no, I didn't get sub 10. I got like a 1004 or something like that in cloud.
That's
So
really
not
good.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it was pretty good. I still don't have the sub 10, but I'm trying. Um
Yeah, sub 10 is really hard from what I've seen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, wow.
You like because not only like the hard part of the cloud run is the Bowser fight, right? Like
Hmm.
you have to not only do you have to get the cloud, which in itself is quite a difficult thing to do, um, but then you also have to bring the cloud all the way to the Bowser fight and then use the cloud to manipulate the fight. And there's a lot of time that can bleed away in that fight as a result of like not managing the cloud properly and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you
So,
miss one thing, it's practically over because you need it to save the time. So once
yep,
you lose it, like you can't PB. You're losing
exactly.
more than 10 seconds on average or something.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so far
But
I've only done no major glitches and I don't know about other stuff.
yeah, the I would say the orb glitch is extremely easy to pull off. Like once you
Hmm.
learn the beginner strat for it, it's like
Yeah, but it
really
also
easy to
doesn't
get the orb.
save a ton of time.
No, it doesn't, because you
So
have to
it's
go
like,
back to another level
yeah, so
to
it's
get
like,
it.
what is that, like 10 or 20 seconds,
That's
which
about that, yeah.
which is good, but like, ugh.
It kind of
Like
gets
Cloud saves like a
your feet
minute,
wet.
so it's like, ooh, that's what I
Yeah,
want.
because you just like you get the cloud in the first level that you don't even skip a beat really.
Hmm.
Um,
Although you
but
have
it
to
is
do
kind
some
of cool to get
ace
your
for that,
yeah, you do. You
which is
do.
kind of complicated.
It's a little bit. There's a beginner strat that I think makes it pretty simple, but to get your, I think the orb run is good just to get your feet wet with the whole arbitrary code execution thing because like the setup for it is way easier, but it kind of gets your gears turning on like how it works. You know, it's like the whole jumping off of Yoshi thing and grabbing the coin
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Like it kind of warms you up to that idea.
It's funny
So that when
because
you start doing the cloud one, it's a little easier.
yeah, it's funny because the cloud, getting the cloud, that's considered arbitrary code execution, but the orb isn't.
That is weird.
Yeah, I think it's because like you're doing some like manipulation to set up to get the cloud, but the orb just works.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, but that's why the I saw the Bismuth video on the world record of 11 exit recently, and the task. The reason there's no cloud tasks is because it's considered arbitrary code execution. So the task of 11 exit is orb. Like
Oh,
the
that's
official
weird.
task of 11 exit is the orb, because
So
the
it
ace is just zero exit.
right. Yeah, yeah,
So Bismuth like made a whole cloud task just to have one for his video.
yeah.
Some Sigma energy or something.
Yeah, I guess so, huh? I mean, that's good. I kind of like that there's a cloud test because some of the strats that are in Super Mario World any percent, like the clipping through the stairs thing that they can do in the ghost house. I like the
Mm,
first time I saw that, I was like,
that's some
my eyes
subpixel
popped out of
bullshit.
my head.
No thanks.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah, yeah,
can't say
yeah.
that. I all I do is subpixel bullshit, but
Yeah, it's like right in your wheelhouse.
maybe. But it also seems complicated in its own
Yeah,
right.
I
And
tried to search it up and I was like, I don't know what I'm
mm,
looking at. I don't understand what I'm seeing. So
I'm sure Bismuth explains it well in his video.
yeah, that's true. He does do a very good job.
Yeah. You have a question here about Odyssey.
Sure. Is that what I gained popularity through, or was I a known content creator beforehand? No. So Odyssey was the first thing that I
Hmm.
did on Twitch. Like I mentioned earlier, I was on Justin TV, but I wouldn't really consider myself a content creator at all in that space. That was just like me hanging out with some friends that I met online and kind of just doing my thing there. Definitely wouldn't consider myself a content creator. Definitely wasn't getting paid for it. Um, but yeah, Twitch is like kind of where I started with Odyssey, and it was just like, you know, I feel like I'm pretty good at what people would call like networking on Twitch, which is just like, it, honestly, for me, it just feels like watching other people's streams and being really active in their communities and stuff like that. Like if you make yourself a presence in someone's stream and then that streamer finds out kind of naturally that like you are also doing it, then they're likely to either A, stop by themselves, or B, raid you at some point or
Hmm.
something like that. And like that's just kind of how you grow on Twitch. So
Yeah, it's all
it was
about
just a lot of
community
that. Yeah,
because
a lot of
Twitch isn't gonna
community.
do shit for you. You have to do that shit yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And like that's the kind of the hidden time sink of being a full-time content creator on Twitch specifically that
Hmm.
like doesn't really feel like work in my opinion, but it absolutely is part of your time and your
Hmm.
energy, so it counts. That a lot of people don't really see. They're just like, oh, you just sit there and you play video games all day. It's like, yes, but when I'm not doing that, I'm also, watching other people play video games and making friends and like making the connections that are relevant to me being able to do this full time. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, long story short, Odyssey was the first thing that kind of put me on the map as a streamer. And then, you make your connections through that. Like the reason that I've been on so many, oh,
How was your? Yep.
little blip, hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
I just need to make sure that I keep moving my mouse around.
Oh,
um,
what's causing that then?
just like literally just going into sleep mode
Oh wow.
because I've not moved my mouse for however long.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the reason that I've been on so many like GDQ hotfix shows is because like the people who run the hotfix shows know who I am and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm doing this show and this show is about like RNG. So would you want to do like a Talkatoo Super Mario Odyssey speedrun for my show?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I would," right? So it's all about making those connections
Hmm.
that puts you into the positions where you get to do that kind of stuff. So,
It's really
um,
easy to make connections in the speedrunning scene because everyone's so welcoming and nice, and we're
yeah,
we're all doing the same thing. We're all friends. We all go to GDQs. We all do whatever. So,
exactly,
like,
yeah.
I've
And
always
that's
said, it's really hard to be someone in the public eye. Like, even as a speedrunner, I know we talked about it.
mhm,
But to be somebody in the speedrun scene is really easy, especially if you're
yeah.
like good at something and watch a lot of streams. Like, someone asked me like, how popular do you see yourself? Like, just as like a joke question, like if you use like ABCDF scale, like regular popularity, I gave myself like a D minus, like maybe even F, because who mega lol, that's me. But like in the speedrun scene, I'm like maybe A minus B plus. It's so easy to, like, everyone almost knows everyone. That's
Yeah,
just the speedrun community. Even though it's so big, like, we all know each other.
absolutely. Yeah, and it reaches across many different games,
Hmm.
and there are definitely people who like when we watch GDQ or something like that, I'm like, who is this person and what is this game? That obviously still happens,
Hmm. But then
but
you look it
at the
up,
same time,
you're more entitled to like look them up and find out more, and then it's like, oh,
for
okay,
sure,
and now you're
yeah,
educated.
and you're usually only like 1 degree of separation away from just about anybody in the
Yeah,
super or
also
in the
that.
speedrunning community.
Hmm.
So like, there's that, like, and especially if you combine them all at GDQ, like that just kind of changes everything. Like GDQ in the grand scheme of things is a pretty small convention. Like a lot of conventions out there, I'll have like tens of
Mm,
thousands of people sometimes. Whereas GDQ caps out at like I think the biggest one that they had in person was like 3,000 people,
something like that.
but they've also cut back recently because of COVID restrictions and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So, so those conventions are really small, and I typically call it like my second home because
Hmm.
like when I go to GDQ, you're saying the speedrunning community is really small and like really tight knit. I can turn any corner in that hotel or in that convention space and see somebody that I know,
Hmm.
and like it's just like a whole week of me seeing people that I know and like, and just like shooting the shit with them the whole time and just having a blast.
And
Like it's
you'd
just
also not see them in person like anywhere else but there, so
exactly.
it just
Yeah.
makes it even more like, oh, I want to go there. That's why people
It's my
do that
people.
more.
Yeah. Take me to my people.
It's why
Exactly.
people take me. Yeah, what was I gonna say about that? I had a thought, but I lost it, so never mind, I guess.
That's valid.
Yeah, it
It happens.
happens.
If it's
It's
important, it'll come back.
Yeah, it was just probably about GDQ.
Hmm.
God, the first
When
one,
was your first GDQ?
mine was SGDQ 2018.
Okay. That was only one before me
Hmm.
because my
Which
first one
is,
was 2019.
it's weird that I went to that. I think back then I had 100 followers. I didn't really have a name for myself yet. I maybe had a few category extension records, but
Yeah, but that's
overall.
the thing, right? Like, you don't have to be like a prestigious
You don't have
speedrunner to
to,
attend GDQ, right?
but I had only been in the community not even a year yet, so I didn't feel like anyone would know me. But I was friend I like met Supersonic pretty early there, so I was friends with him
Incredible
already.
person, by the
Yes,
way.
he was episode 1. So, but
Very good.
uh, it was funny. So I wanted to room with him because he was like one of the few people I knew. But he was also rooming with Cosmic. So that me being new, I was like, wait, that's the guy.
Yeah. That
And I
he's the
mean,
one.
now we're like really good friends, but like back then I was like, what?
Yep.
So I got like introduced to everyone like right off the bat because of going to SGQ. And I still played on emulator then, and going there and playing on console made me switch to console. So that was like truly a life-changing experience for a multitude of reasons, but yeah, like God, I'm just surprised I ever went in the first place because I was just so new and I didn't know how I do it. Like I didn't have a lot of money. I was in college. You don't have money in college. How did I do this?
Nope. You sure don't.
But I did it, and now I made it a thing to. Have you seen the on Twitter? There was like these speedrunning pills of different colors going around.
Yes.
One, the one I chose was easily like if I never had to pay for another speedrunning event again and just go to it, I would easily. I don't care
Yeah.
about being good at speedrunning. That's what matters most to me is going to events.
Yes.
That's the most fun.
Absolutely. I agree. And it's interesting because like you were talking about how like Cosmic was the guy and like
He
you
was
had
the
this
guy.
perception of him in the beginning as like this kind of influential figure, this like maybe celebrity in speedrunning or something like
Yep.
that. Like I think that when you first get into speedrunning and you kind of view it and you're like really invested in it and you start to learn the names of people who are really good at it, like Valu and Samurai Man and like those kinds of people and stuff like
Hmm.
that. It's easy to kind of build them up as like celebrities in what you do, and then it isn't until like a little bit later how small the community really is and how easy it is to just kind of be on the same level as that person in terms of just like relatability.
Hmm.
um you know Compare that instead to like the way that like celebrity culture works,
Hmm.
where like you can watch a movie and like really admire, maybe want to be an aspiring actor and like really enjoy, I don't know, fucking Jennifer Aniston or something, but you'll never like she'll always be too many degrees of separation away from you because she's living in a whole other world almost.
Hmm.
Like she's still obviously a person and I'm sure she's relatable if you get to know her, but you never get the chance to know her, right? Whereas speedrunning is like you can maybe idol somebody and then suddenly find yourself sitting at a table next to them, like if you
Hmm.
go to an event like that. It's kind of cool.
I remember that with Derby and at AGDQ 2020 because he was also like the guy,
Yeah, he
especially
was. He
then.
was the guy.
And then I was having dinner with him once, and I remember just being like, "Oh, like me from 3 years ago would be freaking out right now."
Yeah, right?
But over time, you realize like everyone's just a person. Like I don't get starstruck anymore to anyone really
Yep, same.
because it's like when you're friends with like huge YouTubers, like I'm friends with Summoning Salt, I'm friends with Cosmic, I'm friends with Bismuth. They're all like full-time content creators that a bunch of people know, and it's like, yeah, but they're just
Yeah,
people to me. I've met them many times. I talk to them frequently.
like
Like
quote
I'm not
unquote
starstruck.
popular or
Yeah, I'm not
whatever.
starstruck anymore, even though like there's an audience that would be, at least some part of the audience would be. But
Yeah.
so it's
I
just
think
funny to think about once you get used to it.
for sure. I think it's almost like a benefit, like a hidden benefit of being in this community space is that you kind of like learn that life lesson
Hmm.
about how like even though people might be really good at something or something, it doesn't really put them on like any sort of echelon. It doesn't really put them any higher or lower value wise as an individual, as a human being,
Hmm.
because we're all just people at the end of the day. So I think
All
that's
just
kind of
people
like a
doing the
valuable
same
lesson to
thing
learn.
and enjoying each other's company. So like you never have
Yeah.
to like be scared to talk to someone because they might be popular. Like that's something it took me a while to learn too. Like I used to have trouble like reaching out for this because I'm just like but like
But now here we are, and you have your own podcast show.
yeah, it's true. It's funny how that works out. Cosmic would tell me this, but at SGQ 2018, because I said I roomed with him, I hadn't met him or really talked to him yet. When I like especially back then, I was very like antisocial. Like I've gotten better over time thanks to streaming. I think I'd still be like this very no introverted person if it wasn't for streaming, but like I was like too scared to like talk to people new, so I go to the room and he opens the door and I just kind of walk in. Don't say
Yeah.
anything. And that's just funny to me because that's not how I'd be anymore.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's so funny to me that you like mentioned that story as well because like I think people who build their communities and stuff online are sometimes criticized for not being very social
Hmm.
and maybe not having very good social skills, and yet somehow we use the communities that we build online to develop them anyway
Hmm.
in spite of that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily that we were antisocial, it's just that we didn't really find a community that we meshed with, so we had to find it online instead.
Yeah.
At
Now that
least
you bring that
that's what I
up,
feel.
yeah, like my parents will be like, "Why do you spend all your time in the basement? Like, why don't you go outside and talk to people?" I'm like, I trust me, I'm more social here than you could possibly imagine.
Uh-huh. Exactly,
So
yeah, and I don't like the people that are out there.
yeah, the people out there suck.
They do. Like, they don't play video
Let me
games with
talk to
me.
my friends, damn it. Like I
Yeah.
can't just go hang out with them at any time. They live all around the world, quite literally. Like
Yeah,
that's what GDQ is
exactly.
for.
Yeah, and
So.
that's it's so funny because like and ever since I was like way back in the day when I was on JTV and stuff like that, and I was making friends online and like spending a lot of my time on my own, even at like 15 years old, my mom would say stuff like, "Be careful, there's like predators on the internet, and you have to be very careful of them." And like she didn't really realize that we were like using webcam together, and like we could see each other's faces, and now it's like literally my job to be connected to the people who are all around the world, and like to the point where I'm traveling like maybe every other month or so to go see some of these people. um and
Hmm.
it's just such an interesting kind of phase shift. Like, you know, Gen X is my mom's generation, and they still kind of view the internet as like this place full of like people trying to get you. um
I mean, it definitely
and
is, but that's not the part of the internet that we're
you know,
on. So it's
it,
different,
sure, but like
kind of.
maybe just as common as like someone breaking into your house or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like it's of course it's like a real thing that happens, but not very often, right? You
Yeah,
might hear the bad stories, but it's only because they are sensationalized by the news.
true.
So it's not happening as often as you think, and you're like way more likely to come into contact with the people that you want to on the internet because that's what it's good for.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, very true.
but
Um,
yeah. And I
so
suppose that took us on a whole other tangent.
I love
we
tangents.
Yes.
Anytime where I don't have to think and just talk about something, like I said, this would flow naturally. It always does, and that's
Yeah.
what I like about it because just like ideas come into mind. I don't like having a script. I like just coming up with whatever comes to mind. Like that's what
Yeah.
I like talking about because that's where I feel like more interesting stories or topics come from rather than just like what's your favorite game? Like that's
Yeah.
just boring.
Because yeah, if it's rigid like that, you're gonna,
Mhm.
you know, it's gonna be pretty one dimensional.
Yeah,
But
you want it to flow. You don't want to just like read something. I mean, this
that's
isn't a
right.
movie. We don't need scripts. This is
The questions
alive.
the questions are good to kind of get the ball rolling, but they
Hmm.
shouldn't be the focus. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I view it. Like I don't even have
Absolutely.
questions written down. I just come up with them because it's like that's more natural. If I come up with something, that's because I care to ask it. Like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna just read off a script and be like, eh, let's go with this question. Like
Yeah.
that's not as fun. It's not as engaging or I don't know bonding stuff like that.
I agree. You
So
know, there
yeah.
might be specific questions that you wanted to ask because like maybe it's I think it's easier if it's like an episode of a show that like people really want to know like the inner workings of like a person's thought process on something
Hmm.
or something like that, or like what their favorite thing is or something like that. But you know, we're all just speedrunners. Again, we've kind of been over this where it's just like we're all just kind of regular people just vibing doing our thing. So
It's true.
there's there's no
We're not
need
all
for any
that
of that.
interesting. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's no need for that like
Yeah,
sensationalizing in my opinion.
we have the stories about speedrunning, but we're not like going to millionaire mansions like the famous actors.
That's right.
You're not gonna hear stories like that. We're gonna be like, I went to a restaurant today. Isn't that exciting, guys?
Yeah.
Surely you can't relate to me. No, it's not like
Yeah.
that.
I spend a lot of my time in my apartment, so
Hmm.
I mean,
I
there's
spend a lot
not
of
a
time
lot
in
to
this
say about that.
basement,
Yeah.
and it is fucking dirty as hell. So that's my
I
life.
mean, the corner of the roof that I can see over your head there is looking pretty dandy. So
Yeah, popcorn ceiling. That's where the ventilation goes. I mean, I could show you the holes in the wall, and literally over there is just a junk pile, because I live with my family still, so that's the
yep,
junk pile. And then I have this section of the basement auctioned off to me, where I have my desk and consoles and TV and everything. But
your little slice of
that's my
life.
exciting life. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like I
yeah,
can't. I'm not someone that's full time content. I can't. I'm lucky to make $20 a month streaming. So, I
right.
don't. I just don't have like a. My life's not exciting. So,
So subscribe to GTAce on Twitch.tv.
I mean, you can, but I need better emotes first. Honestly, I have good ones, but I have slots I don't use yet. Is what I
Right.
mean. Um, like I don't have cool emotes like this fella here.
I I mean, I genuinely do attribute some of my stream success to like how deep diving I went into like creating, I guess, a brand. I didn't really think of it that way at the time. I was
Hmm.
just like, if we're gonna do emotes, it's gonna be of a character that I'm proud of. So I'm gonna make sure that I hire an artist that I think can pull it off properly. And like I really did think about it, and I really did like commit to that idea. And I do attribute some of like the success to that. I think
Hmm.
is because like
Yeah,
even if they
branding is important
yeah, exactly. Branding is important. Like
because it gives you
that's
something people recognize and
right.
associate with you specifically, and that is
Yeah,
helpful.
if you're just that's another reason why maybe some of like the direction that content creation is
Hmm.
going. Um, a lot of the regular speedrunners, the good speedrunners don't get all of that publicity anymore is because they don't really have any sort of coherent
Hmm.
thing to attach to themselves aside from the fact that they got the world record in Super Mario 64, for example.
Hmm.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like you know, if you don't have any sort of symbolism or branding of any kind, then it's kind of disconnected. It's hard to find you
Hmm.
aside from that. So
Definitely true. But yeah, I mean, because of your branding and your emotes and everything, I mean, you made this thing. You have the whole like collectibles partnership thing.
it's
I
true.
mean, and I mean that's a whole nother money making thing is all the merch and stuff. Yeah, see,
Like
there it is.
I literally have a partnership with like a company that just wants to make stuff like associated with that brand, which I think is like the raddest thing of all time.
Hmm.
So yeah, shout outs to Tantrum Collectibles. This is not an ad segment, but they are pretty awesome. So
Hashtag not sponsored, but
yeah. So
they're
hashtag not sponsored, but sort of.
n- not sponsored to me, but maybe to you.
True. Yeah, true.
So half sponsored.
But yeah, it really is all about that. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to get like all of this stuff together to be someone on the internet.
yeah, because like
There's a lot of things you have to think about.
streamers are just one person too.
Hmm.
Like when you think about like television branding and like, you know, branding for companies and stuff like that, like they've got whole executive teams that take care of this stuff for them.
Hmm.
And
Well,
like
a lot of
it's a
the
whole it's a
yeah, a
whole
lot
thing.
of the like popular streamers aren't just one person; they are a team.
Exactly. Yep.
And so, I mean, once you can afford it, like I guess it makes sense. Makes your life easier. Like, ooh, have an editor. Ooh, have a brander, a marketer, or whatever.
Yep.
So, like, it can definitely grow to something like that. But yeah, most people are just one person starting out. So,
hmm And they
and
have to
so
be
they're
their
doing all the
own.
work. And God, is that
Yep.
hard?
They have to be their own secretary, their own director, their own producer, their
Marketer.
own actor, their own writer, their
Mm-hmm.
own performer. They have to be everything. So the only thing that I outsourced at the beginning was the art, like the emotes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like some people actually do that on their own too. They'll
Yeah.
literally just draw their own emotes. So it's tough, especially when you're starting to like justify spending the non amount of money that you're getting on something. So I guess it's kind of an investment risk, you could say.
A little
But
bit. It
yeah,
depends on the
it's
payoff later. Like, you have to
yeah,
I guess there's no way to know like how far in the future it might pay off, but if you're doing something like that, you have to like be mindful like, will this pay off later? or
Yeah.
this was a worthy investment. And
And for the emotes, that seemed like an easy one because it's
yes.
like, okay, so each emote, the artist is going to charge me like $30 per emote. So that just means that like, how many people have to subscribe to me for me to make my money back? Five? Done. You know,
Hmm.
like that's an easy one to kind of justify.
Yeah.
All the other stuff on top of that, editing is like the hardest one for me to
Hmm.
justify.
Yeah.
Like getting a YouTube editor, I'm like, okay, well if I have to pay you like $100 per video, I'm not gonna make that back until like the next century because like I make $5 on my YouTube channel a month, if that. Like it's a really hard investment to justify.
Hmm.
And so that's when you tend to take on yourself, and that's like the hugest time sink of all
Yeah.
time.
Editing's hard. Like,
Editing sucks.
yes. Like, I've talked about it with other people like that are successful. It's like you need to do it on YouTube. That's where everything is. But to make YouTube, you have to edit stuff. And
Yep.
editing's hard, time consuming, and boring.
In my opinion, I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
So and you also need to come up with intriguing ideas and do all that, and that's hard in its own right. Like the
Yeah.
whole process is hard as hell. And
And when you look at it too, it's like you can hire an editor, and sometimes the editor can put something together for you. And I did run that way for a little while. But what the editor will typically do is just cut up what you give them.
mhm,
So, like, if all you give them is YouTube, or sorry, like Twitch VODs or whatever, then that's all they have to go with. But again, YouTube algorithm doesn't really work that way. It wants like an intriguing story, it wants narration, it
mhm,
wants you to kind of like pull together a story with the content that you're giving.
mhm,
And unless you have like very specifically done that with your Twitch content already so that they can pair it like patch it together that way, it's just not going to be good enough for YouTube. So you end up needing to do narration on top of that anyway, and providing a lot more like resources from the outside. Like, you might need to provide pictures or be real stuff or stuff like that. So by the time that you have to like pile everything together for a YouTube video that makes it a decent YouTube video, you might as well just do the editing yourself anyway because you've spent so much time like, writing a script and narrating and like providing all these resources and stuff like that. The only thing that's left is editing. You might as well just do that yourself. Like it's
yeah,
such a time consuming process.
yeah. That's why I just speedrun and then upload the
Yep.
full VODs to YouTube
Yeah.
and hope for the
I don't blame
best.
you.
It's so much
Yeah.
easier. But I keep saying like I have ideas that I think would be cool, but then I just get put off by the time commitment it would need, and you don't know if the payoff would even be worth it because
Yeah.
it's hard to like fight well abide by the algorithm. Like I don't know how that shit
Unfortunately.
works.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do, and shout outs to them, but I don't. I don't want
Yeah.
to put
And
in like
it's
this huge time commitment in it. Like even recently, like I started making those like putting all the world records together in one video so you could see like them all catch up to each other. I like the way that looks, which is why I wanted to make them. I had that passion to make it. And my first
yeah.
video like got like almost 10,000 views. Like within hours, I got a message from someone, article writer for Kotaku. They wrote an article about my
Oh,
video.
yeah, that's sick.
Uh, the next two videos I made didn't even break 1,000. So I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that died off pretty quickly. Now what do I do?
That was your 5 minutes of
That
fame
was my
right
5 minutes. Yeah.
there. Yeah, I remember the something similar, and sometimes you can have like a bigger explosion, like a bigger drop in the bucket, so to
Hmm.
speak, depending on like what it is that makes that news headline. Like, Suichi got not just like an article written, but like a bunch of content creators kind of reacting to it and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff blows up huge. Or if like Summoning Salt does a world record progression of your game that like nobody was watching before. Like I remember the runners of New Super Mario Brothers Wii we're getting like maybe 15, 20 average viewers, and then that Summoning Salt video came out and the top runners were getting like 200 viewers.
Hmm.
Like that kind of stuff, like, the amount of influence that the exterior stuff has can vary quite a lot. um, but a lot of the time those kinds of exterior things, you really have to make the most of them, and they don't
Hmm.
last very long,
I
unfortunately.
need to be in a salt video in modern day because I was in a 2019 upload for Mario 1 Warpless. And I mean, at the time, I grew quite a bit for me because I maybe wasn't even at 1,000 followers yet. Then I hit a
Yeah.
thousand maybe, but I never averaged more than like 15. I don't think, unless I was like on world record pace. Then suddenly you have 100 because pace pals. But
Yeah, the
yeah,
pace
I've
pals,
definitely died.
baby.
I've definitely fallen off plus ratioed since then.
But yeah, now summoning salt videos make like the top trending videos on YouTube
It was
now.
number
That's
the most recent one was number one at one point.
yeah, that's
I
wild.
remember when he was number two, and it was only because Mr. Beast was number one. I was like, oh, you just gotta
Oh,
upload when Mr. Beast doesn't. And he did, and number one. There it was.
there you go.
Called it.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yep.
The one that comes to mind also, speaking of like having an article written and like having your moment of fame and then it just like not
hmm
continuing. The one that comes to mind for me is Joe Dunn. I don't know if you know who Joe Dunn is.
No.
He originally did Super Mario Odyssey, is how I met him. But then he kind of got disinterested with it and started doing Breath of the Wild.
Mm.
And he was the first person to accomplish 100% Breath of the Wild damageless.
Ooh,
Um,
that's got to be
and so he had,
forever.
yeah, yeah, it took him a long time to do that. And he got one run that was like over 24 hours in, and he took damage because like one of those electric keys like conducted to his metal like weapon or something like that. It
Mm,
was yeah, he made a really good story out of that whole situation and like blew up on YouTube, like
mhm,
got tens of thousands of subscribers, and then just like that was it. Like as soon as that was
mhm.
done, he just wasn't able to kind of follow up on that and continue to keep the growth going. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah,
Like it was a really cool thing that he did, and it was cool that he got the recognition that he deserved for such an incredible achievement. But it's so fickle. Content creation is so fickle, and
yeah.
it's impossible to know if that's going to be the thing that kind of helps you remain relevant forever.
Like even if you hit it in a freak accident, you then have to capitalize on it, which is its own whole
Yeah,
difficult can of worms.
exactly. I kind of view content creation as like riding a series of waves. Like,
Hmm
you paddle your surfboard out and the waves are kind of calm and stuff like that. But then you finally catch one, and so you like try and ride it. But once the wave is
Eventually,
gone,
it'll
like
fall off.
yeah,
Yeah.
eventually the wave is going to crash against the shore, and you kind of have to go out and find yourself another wave again.
hmm
That's what content creation kind of feels like to me. Is like when things start to kind of calm down and the waters settle. Like if you want to keep this going, if you want to kind of generate the excitement around what you're doing, you got to go and find that wave again. So
Yep. That's a really good way to put it.
yeah.
I think so. Um, keep trying to remember where we were on the speedrun side of things.
I kind of talked about my Super Mario World, like return,
hmm
like because I did it way back in the day, and then I kind of like when I started streaming, um, back on Twitch, I took another stab at Super Mario World, um, and that was really good.
hmm
I did beat the 11 exit, no major glitches in under 11,
hmm
and then I did Orb for like a week, and I kind of came to the same conclusion that you did. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this doesn't save as
Cloud's
much time
faster.
as I wanted, yeah. And so I started doing Cloud, and I think I did get like a 10:04 or something
Yeah.
like that. Still got to get the sub 10. I might come back to that eventually.
hmm
But when I was doing all of that, I was also doing Super Mario 64 at the time. I did 16 star. I think I ended up getting sub 18. I don't remember. It was
18.
something
Wow.
around there.
I
Yeah,
remember the day you got your first sub 20 was the day I got my first sub 20.
that's right. Yeah, I do remember that too. That was
Although
awesome.
you destroyed my sub 20.
Yeah, I ended up like crushing sub 20. It was like a 19.2x or something,
hmm
which is pretty wild. I might not have a sub 18. I might have a sub 19, but something like that.
hmm
It was pretty good. I remember being pretty proud. Um, 1815. Thank you, Blue.
Damn.
Blues on it.
hmm
1815. I know that my sum of best came down under sub 17 though, so I could probably get sub 18. But I was going for a lot of crazy stuff. Like I was trying to do owlless, and I was
hmm
trying to, I was probably a little too big for my britches. But
Like my sum of best
um,
is barely teetering to the. It's like right above 18, like maybe 18
gotcha.
or
Yeah.
2. Uh,
Yeah.
that's a game I really want to like put time into, but there's so many games, and once you're like good at one, you kind of have to keep doing it, or you fall off.
That's just it, right?
hmm
Yeah, speedrunning is a real grind, and like you can be dedicated to it and you can really enjoy the process, but you realize how much time it takes.
hmm
And there are definitely like the reason that I haven't done much speedrunning lately is twofold. One is that like again, we've kind of talked about how remaining relevant in speedrunning and trying to make it your content creation career is a little bit of a dicey thing to do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I just realized that there's a lot of things that I want to do with my life. I just turned 30, and I'm like, man, are there things that I want to do outside, or do I just want to be a speedrunner and like practice speedrunning all day, every day? And the answer is kind of the first one, the
Mm-hmm.
former. Like, there are definitely some things that I
You
want to
can
do in
find a
my life.
balance too, though.
Yeah, of course you can.
So
Yeah, of course.
that's kind of what I'm
But
doing, I think.
yeah, that
I,
balance stretches itself pretty thin when you have like a content creation job where you're focusing on the
mm-hmm.
thing that's making you money, as well as trying to do some of the leisurely things. Like for me, that one thing is travel. Like I want to be going places. I want to. I can still be streaming if I go places, like if I stay with friends or whatever. But like I just want to. I want to see more of the world and like spend time with people in person and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
traveling is a big one for me. And when all is said and done, the dust is settled, and like you're like, how much time do I have left to grind this speed game? Uh, Not very much. But also at the same time, like, where do I do the speed running? So it's interesting that you mentioned Summoning Salt and how he has a super secret channel where he does his speed runs.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. And the reason that I think it's brilliant is because I noticed it's kind of ties into this phenomena that we're talking about. Like, as a content creator, do you want to make speedrunning the main thing that makes you money? If it's not going to be able to do that, do you still love speedrunning enough to continue doing it, and where do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having a kind of secret channel where you do it makes the most sense, because then it can kind of return back to what it was before it became your job, which I think is really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that Small Ant started doing this,
Oh
only
yeah, he
because
has that alt. I
he
saw it
has an alt channel that
recommended,
pops up
like
in my
my recommend.
recommends.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yeah,
What? That's so weird.
it's the
Actually,
only reason I know about it. But
mhm,
the
same.
fact that like he obviously didn't keep it a very well kept or well
No.
hidden secret, because that channel does way better than my main channel does. But like, the fact that he just wants to like turn his camera off and like practice speed runs and like
Hmm.
grind them out and stuff like that. Like that is it's so funny that I kind of came to that
Hmm.
revelation on my own. It's like maybe the thing that I want to do with speedrunning is to just go back to the roots of it and not make it my job, and not have to like incentivize it or be the best at it, and just like do it in my own time. I can still use Twitch to stream it and
Hmm.
maintain all the VODs so that I can continue to submit to leaderboards and stuff, which is a part of why I find it fun.
Hmm.
But like not make it a part of the main content so that I don't have to like monetize it and like have all that pressure of like, if I don't do good at this, then I don't make money. So I actually have really been thinking about like getting back into the speedrunning thing, but just doing it like on a side account or
On
something,
all,
so
yeah.
that it's not my job anymore. Like that's something that's really kind of crossed my mind lately, because unfortunately Odyssey speedrunning wasn't doing it for me, which is
Hmm.
why I'm doing
Yeah.
like Kaizo Ironmon stuff, like things that are a little bit more relevant.
Hmm.
So
It's cool that so many like really big popular figures like still care enough to do it legitimately and not
yeah,
have to factor it into their content. I respect that a lot. That means they're passionate about it, and that's really important. But
me
it's funny you
too.
brought up
Yeah.
Small Ant and his alt because Summoning Salt had an alt. Like I watched it plenty, but the reason now he has like a super secret don't tell anyone account is because it started recommending his alt and he didn't want that. And he's like, ah,
That is
shit.
funny.
Well, time to make another one.
Did he use like, I mean, the way that you could circumvent that is to like not add the category or anything.
No, yeah, he didn't. It just still
It
did.
just did it anyway.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, I think he got so big that enough people like would watch his alt,
The
and
algorithm
then
was like,
the
oh,
algorithm was
people who
like,
watch
oh,
this stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So
gotcha.
yeah, but this one like you can't find like unless you know about it. So that's good. Like yeah, he doesn't use the game or anything. So
Yeah, no category, no
no category, no
tags.
tags, uh random channel name, like no title, like random
Yeah, the
title.
same
It's like
way like GDQ might host a throwaway channel so that they can just kind of take from the Twitch feed without having to, cause any problems. And like a random person wouldn't stumble across it or anything.
mm, yeah,
Makes sense.
yep. Um, how many Odyssey records have you had actually? You talked about no, World Peace. Well, that's what it
Yeah.
was.
World Peace was my first one. It was kind of my baby. Whenever I think about Odyssey speedrunning, I still think that World Peace is like my favorite run. because it's like not too long, um, and
Any
it is
percent with
like a
some extra steps.
any percent with extra steps is like not even like an accurate way of putting it though.
Not
Like
really.
yes, you get the same amount of moons, but you do take a completely different route through all the longer kingdoms in the game, and those detours, even though they are longer because you're seeing the story and some of that time is just cutscenes and stuff,
Hmm.
um, the route that you have to take is more, there's just an opportunity for more tricks to be displayed. Like Snow Kingdom and Sand Kingdom specifically have clips that like bypass and sequence break some of the content that happens in those kingdoms, and they are therefore like a very kind of, um, they're like a, I guess, a choke point, but also like a point of, um, what is it, like intrigue, I guess. It's an exciting thing when you get like the inverted pyramids get first try,
Hmm.
or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit like any percent, but I feel like there are more of those kind of like tense moments, where pulling off a trick really kind of makes or breaks the run for you. So it's like, it's more exciting to watch than just any percent, in my opinion. But
Hmm.
I have had the world record in world peace a handful of times. I also had the world record in darker side a couple of times as well.
I remember you the
Um,
first to add inverted pyramid skip to Darker Side on a
that's
freak
correct. Yeah.
accident run.
Yep. That's exactly how it went down. It
Hmm.
was a 3:07:15 or something like that was my final time. And inverted pyramid skip had just been discovered, which was the trick where instead of going clipping into the pyramid was something we already did to bypass some story moons, but it was discovered that you could do a corner clip to like, get on top of the pyramid. Like the midsection is where like the 2D part is. You can stand on a ledge outside of that, and then you could like, use a corner clip, which is basically just like slipping between the seams of a corner. The game is really good and made really well. Um, Slip into that seam and then just use some of the geometry that exists on the pyramid to get all the way to the top without ever having actually stepped foot inside. And for world peace, that saved like 40 seconds. Darker side was a little bit less because like there were moons that you would actually get within the pyramid that needed to be replaced somewhere else, but it was still a significant time save. So that run, that particular darker side run that got the world record that one time, I was behind by like 10 or 15 seconds or something because I had missed DSS or something like that in Cascade. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably just going to reset this run anyway. So let's just go for 2D, or let's go for the inverted pyramid skip. Let's see what happens. And I got it like first try.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. So this is how this is going to go then. And I remember being all freaked out about it. And like I had to like rearrange my splits and stuff like that. And I had to skip a bunch of stuff. And it was a really messy run. But by the time I got to the end, it was the world record at the time. So, and that was like I think a week after that trick got discovered. I remember having a bit of a reputation for like if something was discovered in Odyssey, Dangers was usually the first one to be able to do it in a run or something like that. The same thing happened with, the 2DSS, the little skip that you do when in like the Bowser
Hmm.
capture at the end. I remember when that was discovered by MeWe, a bunch of runners like attempted it, and I threw myself at it for like 3 or 4 hours on stream, and finally was the second person to ever get it. Um, and then I ended up getting it in like one of my any percent PBs like a couple months later, and people were like, "Why did you do that? You're never going to be able to run against this." And I'm like, "I know, I'm an idiot." Like, and now it's so funny because Tyrone just makes it look like it's a cakewalk, but
Hmm.
that is
I
easily
know
the
it's
hardest
not
trick in the
though.
game.
It's
No.
ridiculous. It's crazy that the hardest trick in the run is at the very end of
Yep.
a like hour long.
Yeah, it's really cool, really fun stuff. It reminds me a bit of Kirby. I don't know if you watched any Kirby speedruns, but
I'm not into
um,
Kirby,
that's fair.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I should get into it
Um,
though.
it's very similar to Mario, especially Forgotten Land.
Mm.
It actually kind of made me want to run some of the 2D Kirby's playing that game. But there's a trick in that game that made the rounds, made waves. It was called the hammer space jump. This idea that you could use the hammer power up, and is like you would like float in the air, and you know how Kirby like runs out of breath
Hmm.
eventually, right? Like you can't float forever. If you did that until Kirby started like suffering, you could like cancel out the floating, hammer into the ground, and start mashing the jump button, and Kirby would just go fucking soaring into the air, like clearing skyscrapers and shit. And that ended up being a speedrun tech because like you could jump over some like invisible walls and stuff. But there was one particular use of it that was like right in like the second to last boss fight where you like do that trick in a specific spot to like clip through the ceiling and then like around the boss arena and past an invisible wall. You had to do it frame perfect.
Hmm.
The boss itself was pretty laggy. Like all of this crap, like you had to do a frame perfect laggy trick at the very end of like an hour and a half long run. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can keep speedrunning this game.
Yeah.
It saved like
Yikes.
40 seconds.
Mm.
And it was like, oh man, no, 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 no. I don't know if I can keep grinding this game if it's gonna be like this, man. You can have a perfect run, just completely spoiled in the very last 5 minutes.
Well, you definitely had the Kirby Forgotten Land world record a couple times, even, right?
On a couple of occasions, yeah. I think the
So,
longest that I held the record was for 48 hours. That
mm,
was like right at the beginning of the game's lifespan. So the world record was trading hands like
hmm.
every few, if in some cases minutes, in some cases hours.
Well,
But then Poca just kind of ran away with it.
yeah.
That guy's insane at that game.
I was gonna say, at least you can say that, like, no matter what happens to the game, like,
Yep.
y-
If
you held the
Summoning
world
Salt makes a
record.
Kirby in the Forgotten Land progression video, then I'll be in it.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
how it
kind of cool.
works.
Yeah. Back in Odyssey though, I also did get a Dark Side world record. And it's funny
Oh,
because like the community kind of used Dark Side as like a meme because if we're talking about any percent but with extra steps, Dark
that's
Side
Dark
is the
Side.
category
Got it.
with any percent with a few extra steps because like the original run through the kingdoms to get to the credits is more or less any percent and you do kind of dip out of the way a couple of extra times um, and then once the credits roll you like take a little revisit to some of the smaller kingdoms to collect the rest of the 250 moons that you need, but because of that a lot of people didn't really care about it. It wasn't until there was a trick discovered in Darkside where like you could skip because you're familiar with Darkside, right? It's like the gauntlet with like
Oh yeah, the
all the
rabbits.
brutals.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to fight them all, and you got to fight them all in moon gravity. And then when you get to the top
Oh,
of the Darkside Kingdom, you have to fight
the
the
mech.
Robo Brutal
Yeah.
again. Um, so that in itself was like a really unsatisfying ending for a lot of people,
Hmm.
but it got made more interesting because there was actually a way discovered to skip most of the rabbit fights
Hmm.
where you would like kind of jump around the loading zone. Um, and it's weird that it only works in 3 of the 4 rooms for some reason, but like, skipping all of that saved you like a minute and a half. So it made it a little bit more interesting, but
Yeah, I remember
um,
seeing that trick, and I just did not comprehend what was going on.
yeah,
Like, I knew you were skipping a loading zone, but I was like, "How-" I couldn't put it into words what was going on.
yeah. The especially weird thing about it is like you are trying to like you have to use the weird geometry of the rock wall because it's all
Hmm.
like rocky and jagged and stuff like that. You have to find a spot on the wall that like you won't bonk on so that you can like regain your wall jump so that you can continue moving through that part of the stage. Otherwise, like if you bonk, you just end up in the poison, right? So um yeah, it's just such a weird trick, such a weird thing, and it's crazy to me that people will do it in all moon speed runs where like that happens like 3.5 hours in, and if you
Hmm.
mess it up then you have to do all the fights again, right? So that's something.
Oh yeah, it's if you die at all in any of the fights, you have to start from the beginning.
From the very beginning. Yep.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that
a boss
sucks.
gauntlet. So
Mm.
yeah, the original like safe strat is there's like a little life up part like in you can spin your hat on like the fruit stems
Hmm.
before you arrive at the boss area. Like you would have to do that to like get a life up heart or something, and then when you fight the bosses, you have 6 hits. So that was the safety strat. But now people just like circumvent all the fights and hope for the best. Hope they don't die to the instant poison. So
Yeah, I can't imagine people doing that in all moons.
yeah, I mean, I think there's been some like more consistent ways of doing it lately, but it's still a little sketchy.
Mm.
So but yeah. So yeah, I got the Dark Side World Record a couple of times because again, it was kind of a meme. Not very many people ran it. So like if you were a decent any percent runner and you dedicated even like a couple of days worth of time to doing Dark Side runs, then you would just very easily grab the world record for yourself. That's not true anymore because again, Tyrone 18 is like the dominating force.
Hmm.
Um, and he tends to like kind of just whenever he's bored, like he'll just switch whatever category he's playing, and then 2 weeks later, the world record will be re-updated by
Hmm.
him, and then he moves on to the next one. So,
Yep.
um, we are definitely in the Tyrone era of Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning, but there was a time when I did hold a couple world records. So again, can't be taken away from me, but
No. Yeah. It's always like as long as you're in history at all, that's like what matters. Like no matter
yeah,
how
I
much
think
you
so.
fall off later, like me, uh,
But hey, I mean, you're still at the top of some.
I still try.
Yeah,
I do my best. But
and there's
yeah,
nothing.
there's once more people come in that are like have more time to dedicate and are just much more dedicated anyway, like it's over.
Yeah. And that's just kind of the natural
Yeah.
progression of speedrunning. Like if Tyrone were to take a break from Odyssey indefinitely and like never touch the game again, you can
Someone
almost
else would.
guarantee that someone else would eventually kind of rise up and do that.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's the other thing. Like, if you're speedrunning just for world records, like, that's also not okay. Like, it's got to be for
yeah,
fun. Same with, like, the whole monetary thing.
for sure. Yeah,
Like,
because
that's
I
why I'm
think you
still
can.
doing it. It's fun. Like,
Yeah, you can ruin it for yourself pretty fast if like
yeah.
that's all you do.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
agree.
Uh, you've ran Galaxy. I don't think we've talked about Galaxy at all, but you ran that for
Yeah,
quite a bit. I remember.
I did. I did. It's part of the reason why I had some commentary on like the accessibility of it.
Hmm.
I did go so far as to get the Wii U Virtual Console version because I was like, you know what, I've been running this game for a couple of months. Like I do know how to do the stuff that I need to get this version of the game, so I might as well. But I didn't have another Wii remote, so I wasn't able to do any of the two-player stuff,
Hmm.
which means that I was missing out on like I think it's up to like 7 minutes in any
Wow.
percent of like time save. Yeah, basically like there are a lot of galaxy breaking jumps that you can do in Super Mario Galaxy. And in one player, there's like say 10 of those. That's just a random number. I don't
Hmm.
actually know, but like say that there's like 10 of them in one player that you can do, and maybe two of them are like barely possible. In two-player, those are like free. They're trivial. All of those are just trivial, and you've encountered like 10 or 15 more gravity skips that you can do because that jump just like makes them possible. Um, and some of those might be really difficult even on two-player, but at least they're there, right? So like
Hmm.
you've just opened up a whole new can of worms that you're able to play around with because of this jump. And so part of that was me kind of like feeling defeatist about the fact that I couldn't do those things, but that I stopped playing it. But the other thing is that like I really did want to play all the Mario games and give them a try, and I kind of got satisfied with where I was in Galaxy. But I think that Galaxy is a really fun and kind of overlooked speed
Hmm.
game because it is really long. The
Yes.
world record is like 2:17 or something like that now.
Hmm.
Um, but and that's for Luigi as well. I think Mario
Yeah,
is like
Luigi's
4 or 5
faster than
minutes.
Mario.
Yep. Um, so that's really long for an any percent. Like the second longest, Galaxy 2 being the longest um, for any percent. But at the same time, a lot of that time is because it's just downtime. Like you collect a star, Mario celebrates, he comes back to the observatory, counts his stars, counts his star bits, counts his coins, asks if you want to save. Then you got to choose the little pull star again to get back into the galaxy viewer. You choose your galaxy, you choose your star, you watch him fly into the galaxy, and then you get to play again. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like there's just a lot of downtime. But once you're in the levels themselves are like these little bite-sized pieces of just like pure fun movement. And that's why I liked speedrunning that game so much. It felt like every single star in that game, you could be like, oh, and now I'm going to showcase why the game is really broken. Here's another example. It's like just like there's just so many of those in Galaxy. It's just like super fun to play and show off.
I love
So
like gravity abuse tricks,
yeah,
where Mario just suddenly flips around and wee. It's like
yep.
I love Galaxy.
Exactly. It's just fun to watch, right? It's
Hmm.
fun to watch and it's fun to execute on because like the one cool example that comes to mind like right off the top of my head is like Mega Leg. So it's like the first mini boss that you fight that like is controlled by Bowser Jr. or whatever, and it's like that giant robot that you have to like climb up on the legs or whatever.
Hmm.
The first thing that you're supposed to do in that level is like grab a bullet bill's attention and like slowly guide it into like one of those cages that like blows up when you hit it so that you can like take the warp star to the next planet where the boss fight actually is. But you can actually use the top of that cage and like triple jump off the top of it and then like spin and ground pound, and it'll just like flip the gravity on you and you'll just like ground pound to the boss
Hmm.
level instead, which just like it's just so fun. It's so senseless and so fun. And like that's the kind of stuff that makes Galaxy really fun to speedrun.
Yeah, I've thought about running it someday. It seems like the kind of game that'd just be fun. Plus, I have nostalgia for that game, and
Yeah.
that's like a driving factor for a lot of what I do.
Yeah, me
But
too.
it's just so long.
It is. Yeah. I really enjoyed it as a streaming speedrun game because there was a lot of downtime, so there was a lot of opportunity to like communicate with the chat and stuff like that. Like Odyssey tends to be a little bit taxing on that regard. I noticed that the chat tends to be quite quiet when I play Odyssey because I have a lot less opportunity to kind of turn to the chat and like communicate.
Yeah, that's like
Um,
constant stuff everywhere.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like in between runs you can do it, and like in between kingdoms you can, but like that's 5 or 6 minutes straight of like just putting your head down and like playing as fast as you can in Odyssey. Whereas
Hmm.
Galaxy would be like, okay, this star is like a minute long or something like that, and then you have an entire like 60 to 70 seconds where you're choosing levels and like you just kind of hang out. It's like a very chill, very vibes based speed game, in
Hmm.
my opinion. So it's pretty nice.
Although I don't have a Wii U, isn't like they combined the Switch leaderboards now or something too, right? Isn't like Switch faster now or something?
Technically yes. But again, playing in two-player mode does make things quite a bit faster, and having two Joy Cons kind of connected together is like really awkward, which is why nobody plays on the Switch. But technically, Korean is the fastest language, and Switch loads
Okay,
like if you have the digital 3D World or 3D All Stars, then you're loading just as fast as like the Wii U Virtual Console
got
Japanese
it.
version.
I
So,
I think
but
it's
Korean's
cool
the
that
fastest language, so
I think that'd be more. I don't know how like comfortable it is to hold, but I feel like that'd be more accessible for two player because if you have a Switch, you most likely have two Joy Cons.
that's true.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
at least there's that. But
I just don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how comfy that would feel because like they're very weird shaped controllers as it already
mhm.
is. But
Yeah, but
whereas at
I
least
mean,
with
you
the
can
Wii
already
remotes, like they're
hold them like
very
separately.
yeah,
So
that's true.
it's
But
probably I don't
when
know.
I say two Joy Cons, I don't mean like this. I mean like you have the left one would be the nunchuck, the right one would be your control stick, but then
Hmm.
you would need like a separate right Joy Con
Oh,
that you would hold for the two
oh,
player,
never
right?
mind. Hmm.
Yeah,
I
because
I didn't know how
you
the
are
Switch
using
would
two-player mode.
do that. Wow, that
Yep.
okay. That sucks a lot more then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because now if we're talking like that, you need an extra Joy-Con. Joy-Cons separately are fucking way too expensive.
And maybe you could do like a Pro-Con Joy-Con situation where like the
Oh, that's
second
true.
controller, like maybe you're just holding it like the Joy-Con in your palm while you hold the Pro-Con. I don't really know. I haven't looked into it too much, but
I just
perhaps
like
that's
that
an
that version
option.
of the game, it's like upscaled. I think it's in 1080p, so it looks good.
Yeah,
Best way to Galaxy is looked at the very
it's a
least.
real it's a real shame that they like closed the vault on it though. I don't understand why they did that.
Close the vault, like no
Like 3D
more.
All Stars is
Yeah,
just
okay.
not available
Oh,
anymore.
yeah, like they just don't sell it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, Rip Mario 35 too.
Yeah, right.
That
Such a
was that was the
so
life
many
right
people
there.
were so into that. Like
Hmm.
I don't understand why they would just close it away.
I mean, there are ways to play it now,
Yep.
but
So I've heard.
they're not official, so it's like I just don't understand why they got rid of all that.
Beats me, man.
Makes I think the collective internet does not understand, and we may never understand.
I don't know. They've got some like mega capitalist minds going on there at Nintendo, and they know how to make money. And you know, limited edition stuff tends to drive people crazy and make them want to buy it. So
I guess.
that at the end of the day was probably the reason for it.
Sure, but like, their best-selling games are games they have forever. So it's like, really? I don't know. I guess I don't have
Ex-
a money mindset, so I don't know how it all works, but
Yeah, I think a money mindset is a very anti um, consumer mindset, but that's like I feel like we could go on a whole other
oh
tangent
yeah,
about
that's
that.
literally just Nintendo. That's not money
Yeah,
mindset, that's Nintendo mindset.
Nintendo mindset. Yeah,
Hmm.
capitalist mindset.
They are crazy.
But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, my history with speedrunning has been primarily focused around Mario, especially
Mm-hmm.
since I started streaming on Twitch. I've taken a gander at some other games, um, but yeah, Mario has. I don't know. I think the reason that speedrunning Mario is just so unique, like so integral to what I've done on Twitch, is just because it's like it hits all the buttons, it
Mm-hmm.
checks all the boxes. It it helps with my like my hyper fixation on hobbies and stuff like that. And Mario is just so nostalgic. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm not a very big RNG fan, so if I can be fully responsible for the outcome of a speed run, it feels like it's a technical achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then that hits all the good brain chemicals up there when you get
Yeah.
a PB eventually, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, Mario games have definitely fallen in line, but there's a couple other games that I've given a shot, like um, Specs and Stats. He used to hold the world record for 100% Breath of the Wild. He approached me a couple years ago to do like a game swap challenge where like he would try an any percent speedrun of Odyssey and I would try an any percent speedrun of Breath of the Wild and see who could finish first. And the Breath of the Wild world record is like significantly shorter, but
Mm-hmm.
way harder,
Mm-hmm.
especially someone who's just starting out. Um, because like that game lets you go to Ganon whenever you want, but if you walk in there with like nothing but your underwear and like a stick that you picked up, you're not going to be able to do it, right? So like the speed run is very centered around like figuring out how to get that fight done, um, with as little resources as possible,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still really hard. So I gave that a shot, and that's actually the only way that I beat Breath of the Wild, was eventually speedrunning that challenge. um, but yeah, that was actually a really hard speedrun to learn. Um, and there was also like bullet time bounces and stuff like that. It's funny how far that game has come along as well. And then of course we talked about Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
And also for the memes, when Ultimate or the Untitled Goose Game came out, I speedran that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a really charming speedrun, because like the game itself is pretty charming, but then you've also got this mechanic where like you can hold a boot or something and like let go and hold it again and you'll just like clip through walls. And so like you can get to the end of the game in like 2 minutes or something like that. So yeah, I've been kind of all over the place with speedrunning, but Mario games will always be my home base, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any? What are some future speedrun plans? More Mario?
Oh boy. Well, I definitely want to return to speedrunning the Mario games that I've already kind of
Mm-hmm.
established. I know that I can do better at a lot of them. Whether or not it happens on my main channel or whether or not it happens like as a side hobby, maybe, who's to say? But it will certainly happen. Um, if there's another Mario game coming out, you know that I'm on it. Like, there's no question. I'll be on it day one. Um, but also, I've been a little bit invested in Pokemon. Pokemon is another kind of nostalgia bomb for me. Like every time I kind of get hooked on Pokemon, it just brings all those like childhood feelings back of playing Pokemon games and like collecting them all and stuff like that. And since I've been doing Kaizo Ironmon, I've also been kind of introduced to the joy of randomizers and stuff like that. So that's really fun. Um, and it's kind of got me interested in like checking out Pokemon speedrunning too. I might actually do it, which I if you had asked me that like a year ago, I probably would have laughed at you, because like I said, I'm not a big fan of RNG, but like after watching some Pokemon speedruns and being like involved in the community a little bit more through this Kaizo avenue, it's like speedrunner isn't really as RNG as I thought. Like you can still make it work, um, relatively consistently. So maybe it's not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
And I really do like the Pokemon games, so
It's
maybe I'll
also
give
with
that
how
a
much you
try.
care about the RNG because it's all mental. Like if you
Yeah, of
have
course.
fun with the RNG, like okay, then it's not a factor at all. But
Exactly.
like if it starts pissing you off, then it's like okay, that's enough.
Yeah, people who are like genuinely like raging and super upset at the game that they play to the point where they're like throwing their controller around and stuff like that. I'm like, man, maybe you need to take a break.
That's why I
But
take breaks all the time.
yes, yeah, I think it's important to like be healthy about the
Hmm.
amount of, you know, whatever you're doing. So
Yeah, and sometimes you need to learn that over time, have a
for
focus
sure,
more on your mental. So I've definitely
yeah,
been experiencing that journey personally throughout the past couple years now.
for sure, yeah. Even when I started with Odyssey in 2018, like it made sense that the more you play the game, the better you would get at it. But you do realize that you hit plateaus not just in like technical skill or like with the tricks that you do or whatever, like your actual physical limit, but also your mental limit is really important too.
Hmm.
And I've noticed that like sometimes the biggest PBs that I've gotten, or like even just being able to get PBs at all, has resulted from me stepping away for a couple months and then coming back, playing for like a week, and then suddenly the dam just breaks and you're like, oh well, where was that this whole time? it
Yeah.
was it was in the break. That's what you needed, right?
Yeah. They are definitely important.
Yeah, a
So
very underlooked element,
yeah.
especially if you find yourself being a competitive person. You're like, oh well, X runner is just kind of continuously playing the game and look at what they're able to accomplish with it, and I want to try and keep up. Like that can be a
Hmm.
very difficult and slippery slope to kind of find yourself in if you are a competitive person like that. So
Yeah. And
it's tough to it's tough to unlearn that stuff.
the good thing about speedrunning with breaks is you can just run something else and then come back. So
Exactly.
content
And
never
that's kind of
stops, baby.
Yeah, and that's why communities make like category extensions or
Hmm.
even just different categories in general. Like, maybe it's just any percent that's like grinding you out. Maybe you really want to see those gold splits, or maybe you really just want to see that PB in something. So play world peace instead, and then you get it, and then you're like, okay, great. I've got the dopamine hit again. I
Yeah.
feel refreshed. I can go back to any percent and like maybe have a better viewpoint at it.
Hmm.
Stuff like that. So
Cool. Um, I know it's kind of like speedrunning adjacent. I know it's not really speedrunning, but I mean, you had such a history with Fall Guys. I feel like we have to bring it
yeah,
up.
one that you were a little bit involved with as well.
Yeah, well, it was like such a good game for speedrunners because a lot of it was like time trial based stuff. And
Exactly.
I saw like all of these people, speedrunners I knew play it. I was like, all right, I'll play it. And then I was like, yeah, this is fun. So yeah, I
Yep.
definitely was on the hype train with everyone else when it came out.
Yeah. And I don't know if you had any like specific questions that you wanted to ask about it, but like,
Not really.
um, yeah, that's fair. That's kind of the flow of the show, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yep.
Um, but I do remember like when I was in Australia, actually, it was in 2018. No, 2019. It was like right before the pandemic. It was in October of 2019. I went to Australia for PAX to go see some friends that I knew there. Um, But like when I was at PAX, I remember seeing there was a booth set up for Fall Guys,
Mm.
and I didn't really give it much of a thought. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a battle royale, but like they're playing little mini games. Like that's kind of cute. Like maybe that'll be something one day. Kind of went off my radar, and I didn't think about it for an entire year, and then it came out the next year in like I think it was August of 2020. Um, and I'm pretty sure it was Fur who was like, "Hey, I got like a beta code for this. If you wanted to play it or something." And I was like, "Oh, I guess. Like, what is this?" And then it kind of came flooding back. I was like, "Oh, it's this cute little game." And I don't usually play other games in my spare time. Like, it's very rare for me to like play video games unless it's like practicing speedruns or something like that. But this game was the first one that kind of pulled me into playing casual games on my own again. And I was like, I found myself wanting to play it all the time. Um, and then I remember, I think it was Grand Pooh Bear who like retweeted a dude who was like really, really invested in getting good at Fall Guys. And he was like doing some of these like insane strats. This is like week one, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
doing these insane strats where he's like really being kind of sweaty about it, and he's like jumping on the tiles on hexagon instead of like just running across them, and like really trying his hardest to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that guy was getting a lot of like criticism for being like sweaty at a kid's game or something, which is like such a
That's
stupid
what we
argument a
all
lot of the
are.
time. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like literally that's what we all are. It'll
Mm-hmm.
be people who play shooting games who make arguments like that, but they're literally just the sweaty kids playing a children's game too. It's just
Yeah,
your
Call
game
of
has
Duty is a
guns.
children's game for sure. So.
Yeah, exactly. They're all the same. Like there is no such thing as a kids game,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like I don't know. It's a dumb argument to make, but that's not the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Is like when I saw that, I kind of got inspired. I was like, I think my speedrunning skills and like my video game background is perfect for this game. Like if I wanted to play this game on stream and kind of be good at it and like be a part of the community that wants to be good at it as well, like this is an interesting avenue to take. And it was a weird jump because I like stepped away from speedrunning to pursue it. But I got lucky to participate in like a tournament that Grand Pooh Bear was hosting, and did really, really well at it. Like better than I even expected to do, and that kind of like propelled me in that direction. And like I took off with it for a while and kind of put speedrunning on the back burner to like focus on Fall Guys. But you're right. I think Fall Guys is like a it appealed to a lot of the Mario speedrunners and stuff, especially because it was like right in their wheelhouse. It was
Hmm.
like it was a battle royale for people who liked platforming games, and like that's a speedrunner. That's
Hmm.
like that's literally what a speedrunner is looking for. And so it was, yeah, it was a super fun game to hop into. So
Not to mention you won one of Grand Pooh Bear's events.
that's right. Yeah. So the first tournament that I entered wasn't even like one of those. It was a I think a duos tournament that he hosted with like speed gaming or something.
Mm.
And I ended up being like in the finals against Grand Pooh Bear or something, and that's kind of like what put me on his radar. And then when he started hosting the Fall Mania tournaments hosted by Red Bull, he ended up pulling me into a couple of them, and it was the fourth one that he hosted, I think, that I ended up winning. And that was huge. It was huge for like my again, we're riding the waves of content creation, so that was like that
Hmm.
was a really big wave.
Hmm.
But also like it was so interesting to see that like my speedrunning talents were being transferred into a game that was kind of adjacent but slightly different, and it was like paying off for me in like a way that I never really could have imagined. Um, and it inspired me to do the same. Like Grand Pooh Bear was doing those because Fall Guys was like the really big thing, but then when it kind of started waning a little bit, I recognized in the same way that we were talking about speedrunners and all the effort and time and energy that they put into the game and like maybe not so much reward that they get from it.
Hmm.
I was noticing that with the Fall Guys community too. I was like, there is like a huge community of people who are like playing this game for the specific purpose of getting better at it, and they don't really have anything to show for it because there's no stage for them. So like I wanted to be that stage, and that's where Fallapalooza came from.
Hmm.
Is like we community funded prize money for those tournaments so that people could enter them and showcase how good they were at this game that they really loved.
Yep.
So
I joined a couple of them. I
you
do
did show it a
remember.
couple of them, yeah,
Mhm. I also
yeah,
remember in one of the Fall Manias, we were both in it, but I was only in it because Grand Pooper invited Cosmic, and it happened to be the tag team one.
right.
So,
So you tagged along.
oh yeah, because I was the good one. Between us, I played more because I was in the discords playing almost every day with everyone else. So,
That's right. Yep,
yep.
yep.
And then,
And that's kind of how that game was.
but I think you just came off of your win, and then it was that, and then we beat you in round one because they
Yep.
put us together, and it was like, well, and it was only because like there were some idiots all on the group like destroying everything. Actually, I did like clutch out a victory though. The first game I got a crown. I was
Right.
like, hell yeah. And then the second game, like these our teammates threw for some reason.
Yeah, that was
Probably
a
stream
really
snipers.
Yeah, that was a really big problem with like trying to host those tournaments was like
Yeah.
avoiding the people who would like try and snipe in and like ruin the fun of the whole event. But
Mm-hmm.
we came up with our own clever solutions for that and stuff. And all in all, it was pretty all right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was super fun times. I remember just like I was so invested in that game, hyper fixation
Mm-hmm.
coming in again, that I would like wake up, I would like practice that game because I wanted to be really good at it all the time. Whereby just like I would wake up and I would do all my daily stuff, and then I would just sit down and I would play the game, be like watching my watch until 5 p.m. rolls around and it's time to stream, and then I would just basically just turn the stream on and just keep playing. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was how it was for a really long time with that game
Yeah.
because I was just so addicted to it. Um,
I'm glad it like made a lot of people like meet each other too. Like in the speedrunning
yeah,
sphere too, like so many speedrunners played it that like it introduced like a whole nother community to each other.
that's so weird, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who were even like Mario speedrunners, like you had Dragon Feeney and you had Mitch Flower Power and you had like Grand Pooh Bear and like all of these names that like they maybe knew each other and like mingled with each other, but it like brought them all together to do something
Mm-hmm.
together, which I thought was really interesting. Um, and so even if like you knew of them and you were kind of adjacent to them, this was something that made you collaborate
Mm-hmm.
finally, which was really nice. Um,
Yeah,
from all
because
corners as well. Yeah, because
yeah,
you've got like you and Cosmic from Super Mario Brothers, and you've
yeah,
got Feeny and Shojo and like Pooh Bear from like Mario Maker and Mario World stuff, and then you've got like me and Fur and
Mhm.
people like that from like modern day
Odyssey.
Mario games. It
Yeah,
was yeah.
I was gonna say like, um, because it's not a game you like to play. It's not really a game you want to play alone. Like you
No.
can, and that is how you get good at it. But it's definitely like a party game.
Yeah.
So you want to find people to play with. So it really like gets you talking and being like, "Hey, you want to play?" Hey, and then you
Yeah,
that's how it
exactly.
goes.
And there was like, I look at my content now and I think about how kind of detrimental it would be if I tried to do some sort of collaborative. Like I get asked by friends sometimes to be like, "Hey, you want to play like this random multiplayer game on stream sometime?" And I'd be like, not really, because it's like kind of out of the way of like what I do, and I got to make sure that we're keeping it consistent and stuff like that. Like it's just not my brand to do random multiplayer games, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? But when we were like balls deep in the Fall Guys era, like that was the norm. Like
Oh yeah.
it was what you wanted to do is like be collaborative with other people on stream and stuff like that. And I honestly kind of miss it, but I think it takes the right kind of game to bring that back into the content sphere for me.
Hmm.
So, but
I mean,
it
you
was
can always
definitely
play
an era.
multiplayer games offline too. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be
exactly.
stream content, but yeah, that was like perfect stream content because everyone was doing it.
Yep,
So there
exactly.
was always some popularity to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right around the
2020
same
was a
time that
good year,
Among Us
minus
was.
COVID.
Yeah, it's so funny how like I have really good fond memories of 2020.
Hmm.
It was when my stream actually started doing well enough that I could do it full time because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
Probably a lot of good like social games came out. Animal Crossing like right at the beginning of the
Hmm.
pandemic, and then like Fall Guys and Among Us came in. Well, Among Us was already out, but it
Yeah, but
like
it,
became
yeah.
popular sometime later. Um, it was amazing how like connected we were in the world's most disconnected time, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, it's
So
at a time where because you're so disconnected, you're like wanting to do it, so you find whatever you can to do it, and online makes it happen.
exactly. Yep.
Yep.
I still go back to Fall Guys sometimes. It's definitely not the game that it once was. They had a lot of ambitious claims that they did not live up to, in my opinion.
Mm.
I also just kind of stopped doing Fallapalooza because it was pretty clear they were pushing in the direction of we need more people to play this game versus we want this game to cater to people who want to be competitive and like
Hmm.
really good at it. So there was a lot more randomness. There was a lot more um, you know, with it being multi-platform, there was a lot more performance issues. Um, oh, hold on,
Yep.
please hold on my back.
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just need to make sure I keep moving my mouse.
Hmm.
Um, and also just like I guess with how many games they eventually ended up adding in, they weren't able to keep all of them in the rotation. I don't know if you know about this, but like
I've heard about it,
now,
and that really puts me off. Yeah,
yeah, like
I
that
don't
was one of
like
the things they said they were never
vaulting
gonna.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing that they said they were never going to do at the beginning. They were like, yeah, when we keep adding games, they're all going to stay within the rotation so that it's always fresh. But
Hmm.
now they've cut it down to like a third of the total games that they ever had. And so it like, I don't know, it just kind of feels stunted,
Yeah, I stopped
unfortunately.
after season one of the like rebrand
Yep.
because it just yeah I like now it's free for everyone and now the battle pass costs money and it's like
Yeah.
no, this isn't what I bought the game for anymore.
Yeah. You can definitely see the Epic Games influence.
Yeah,
And it's
it
unfortunate
became
because,
Fortnite Fall Guys. That's
yeah,
just all it
exactly.
did. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't like Fortnite, so now I don't like Fall Guys.
Yeah, it's like I wish there was an alternative still to the cosmetics.
Hmm.
I wish there was a way to earn cosmetics without having to spend like if you really wanted them all, you would be spending hundreds of dollars on that game like a week, which is
Hmm.
insane to me. I cannot believe they get away with that. But that's the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah,
Epic Games has that formula down that must be working for them, so
yeah, just a shame. Like
it
the
is.
biggest thing is vaulting games. That was
Yeah.
yeah. That makes me like never want to play it again almost.
Yeah. If it's free to play, let us play all the games.
Yeah.
But yeah. And one
But
of the best finals too, the Thin Ice one, which is like Hexagon on Ice.
yeah.
Like that one's been in the vault forever. So
No, I love
yeah,
Thin Ice. I
I
remember
know.
making the pillars. Oh,
Yeah. The PSA 9s.
Yeah, and someone always ruined the quality of it at some point.
How dare they?
God, good
Good memories of
times.
that game though.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, yeah.
I find myself thinking about Fall Guys a lot, and like, it was a good era. It was a good era to be in.
Yeah,
But
everyone like no life that game at the same time. It was great.
yeah, right.
Most social interaction I had in a while there.
Yep. We need another game like that, and we need it to remain integral to what
What they said
keeps
it would
people
be.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because we might all still be playing it if they actually did, but they didn't. So
Yeah.
that's too bad.
Yeah. Everyone stopped after Epic like started doing their thing. So yeah, that's definitely why, or at least
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah, I agree. But I understand how games like that need to continue to function, I guess, and
Hmm.
they need funding and they need whatever. So
Yeah, it's
they're
definitely a
doing what
game
they
where
feel like
they
they need to.
keep adding stuff, so you need to constantly pay for development.
Yeah,
It's not just like oh, it's released, we're good. No,
yeah.
it's not like that. And
Sit
now it's
back and
free,
reap the
so they have
benefits.
to make money somehow.
Yeah,
Just
and I
unfortunate.
understand. Yeah, I understand why they did that too, because they're going to hit a saturation point if they don't make it free, right? So
Hmm. Yep. I think I'm running out of things to talk about.
yeah, I mean, we've touched a lot on like my history in especially speedrunning and like Twitch streaming and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I don't suppose if like you had any specific questions about like things that I liked or whatever, but
I'll think of some, but I can also open it up to the chat to ask whatever they want. Like,
also a good idea. Yep.
yes, that is fine.
Open.
Are there any games you like to watch that you don't ever plan on speedrunning?
Um, ooh, that is a good question. Uh, Zelda Ocarina of Time for sure.
Mm.
I don't really have any ambition of speedrunning that game, but I do find it very fascinating. How good people are at it. I could probably say that about Breath of the Wild now as well. Like, I kind of had my moment. I had my fun trying it out once, but there's definitely a reason that I'm a Mario speedrunner instead of a Zelda one. Um, but the Pokemon ones as well, I guess, are kind of in that same line. Again, I said I might try to do a Pokemon speed run. I watched Kerbis54 is the name of the guy. Really good friend. Met him through Super Mario Odyssey, and then he ended up being more of like a Pokemon. Well, he did Minish Cap, which was also really fun to watch, and Let's Go Pikachu. And Let's Go Pikachu speedruns are like really kind of interesting. There's like a lot of um, they're one of the how that have you played that game before?
I
Let's
have
Go
not.
Pikachu. It's basically like a remake of the Kanto games, Red, Blue,
Hmm.
Yellow, but um, kind of melded together with Pokemon Go. And
Hmm.
each of the gyms has like a requirement to get into them. Like one of the gyms wants you to show a cute Pokemon, for example. Um,
Okay.
but Koga's gym is you need to have caught 50 Pokemon by the
Mm,
time you get there,
that's a lot.
um, which fits into the whole Let's Go theme, which is
Hmm.
like you're just trying to catch them. Like there's no battling wild Pokemon. There's only catching. So um, I thought that was really interesting because the routing of the game centralizes around needing to have 50 Pokemon by the time you get to Koga's gym. So like it's a little bit different
Hmm.
from your regular Pokemon speedrun experience, which is just like avoid all the wild encounters and avoid as many optional trainers as possible and
And
just
just
get
have
to the
one
end.
Pokemon to
So
obliterate everyone.
yeah, so I've always really enjoyed watching that speedrun as well for that reason. Because like there's a lot of like on the fly, like okay, well if I don't get this encounter, which is really rare, then I have to make it up somewhere else, kind of deal. So it's interesting to watch the brains of people who are good at speedruns like that really work.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting games. I need to like look at some more stuff too. I usually focus on things I've just been watching forever, but like every game has something cool about it usually.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you just need to like see this one thing and be like, "Oh," and then you're hooked.
Yep. And we've been talking primarily about Nintendo games, but that's kind of just like
Hmm.
I don't know. If I'm not much of a gamer outside of Nintendo games for the like if I'm being honest, but that doesn't stop me from watching like Elden Ring speedruns and stuff like that sometimes too. Like I find those to be kind of fascinating in their own way.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I'm not much of a modern game player anymore.
yeah, same.
So,
Unless it appeals to that kind of sense of what, kind of games that we play. Like Fall Guys is a good example.
yeah, or whatever latest Mario game comes out.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
you have any other GDQ stories or favorite moments or something? We haven't talked a ton about GDQ.
Oh
A good amount
yeah.
though.
I mean, I
I mean,
usually
you're wearing
spend a
the
lot
hat
of
and
my.
everything.
I know I'm repping the brand.
Mm-hmm.
GDQ and I have like a really cool like history. Like I've been to every live event that I have been able to attend. Like obviously COVID kind of put a damper on things,
Mm-hmm.
but I have made my way to every live GDQ since AGDQ 2019, and that was the first one I went to. So obviously holds a really dear place in my heart, and I'll try and go to every single one
So
that I
you
can.
remember the murder hallway?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember that hotel being under renovation. That was when that was in Maryland, right?
Mm-hmm. Like
Y-
Bethesda, North Bethesda or something.
Right. Yep. That's the one. Um because that was the only AGDQ that they held there.
Mm-hmm.
The next one was in Florida, and then we haven't had an AGDQ since.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, I do remember the murder hallway. And like kind of the same way that you described it, like when you went to your first GDQ, you were only in the community for about a year, and you like didn't feel like fully in place or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. That's kind of how I felt about being at GDQ the first time too, especially because I'd never shown my face on camera. I was like really shy. I remember having a friend that I did know that I spent most of my time just kind of following around, and they were the one who, you know, broke the ice to a lot of the people that I knew but had never met before. um, it was a lot of that, and but then the second time I went to GDQ was like the best GDQ I'd ever had because like the ice had been broken at that
Mm-hmm.
point, and it was like now I'm just like in the company of friends everywhere I go,
That was
and
the
that
first
just
one I couldn't go to since I started going. That was HDQ 2019 then, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, at the infamous Minnesota hotel. Um, do you? I think it is that hotel. They like completely recreated it in Minecraft, and by they I mean like
Someone
I
did,
know
yeah.
people. I know people like completely recreated
The
it in
double
Minecraft.
tree, yep.
Yeah, the DoubleTree. Yeah. Yep. Iconic hotel.
It won't be there this year though,
No,
which is
no.
interesting.
Yeah, they kept the city. They just changed the hotel because I actually knew that was coming because the contract was up. But
Oh, really?
yeah,
That was a long
it
contract.
yeah. I mean they kind of had to freeze it for a while because of the whole pandemic thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was the last year they were allowed to go there, and I guess they didn't renew. So it'll be interesting to see what the new hotel's like. I would not mind one that's maybe closer to downtown so that there's more walkability and we can
Hmm.
actually see things without having to, like I think the closest food place aside from that little strip that had like the coffee shop and the pizza joint and like the Burger King,
Hmm. Dairy
the
Queen,
closest
TGI
yeah,
Fridays.
that's the one, yeah.
Hmm.
Those were the couple of food places in the area, but if you wanted anything else, you had to like drive
Hmm.
5 to 10 minutes. It's like so annoying, um but the hotel is pretty cozy, and it's definitely nostalgia for me. Like if I ever see that hotel in pictures, I'm like, oh man, GDQ.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I
love being there.
remember when I went to SGQ 2022, the last time I was at that hotel was 2018 because I didn't go to 2019 and then the pandemic happened. So I was like, it's been 4 years. Holy shit.
Yeah. They'd done a couple of renovations in the time
Oh,
that we
yeah,
were
it was
gone
very
too.
different from what I remembered back then.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a good one. Good hotel.
Hmm.
Um, First time I met Spike Vegeta in person, of course, was at one of those events as well. He's such a character. He's like if I were to pick one streaming role model, somebody that I claim to like look up to and want to model what I do around, it's definitely that guy. Like that guy is just he's just such a sweetheart. Such
Yeah,
an awesome guy.
definitely. I've met him a couple times.
Yeah.
Um, Last HDDQ, and then I went to Grand Pooh Bear's event in Chicago because I
Oh
had a
right,
family
yeah.
member going up there, so it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah, those speedrun sessions things are pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been to two of them now, but the other one was because it was at GDQ. So like anyone from GDQ could have just gone to that.
Yeah, I was totally planning to go, but somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody told me that you needed like tickets to go to it, and I was like,
Hmm.
shit, how do I procure that
You
then?
didn't really,
Yeah.
because I drug someone with me and he didn't have a ticket, but they let him in still.
Okay. Yeah. So
Plus,
yeah,
you like know them, so maybe that.
yeah, be
I
like, hey,
mean,
I know those guys.
yeah. So surely they can
Yeah,
work something out.
I would have loved to go, but
Hopefully, he
we
does
just
another
weren't sure if
one
we were allowed.
at GDQ this time too.
That would be nice. Yeah,
Although
definitely have to
I
pick a
do
weekend.
have some like horror stories from after that poo event at a SGDQ. There was like a shooting across the street.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
that's
Um,
fun.
yeah, because I hung out with them after it since, we were all
Yeah.
speedrunners, like the main crew left and there was like this little rooftop patio. So I was hanging out with them. And then, yeah, there was some screaming and, yeah, uh, as
Good
someone with high
stuff.
anxiety, I did not have a good time after that. So I was looking forward to getting back to the hotel at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
I've also had that situation sort of. I wasn't maybe as close as like across the street, but we were in our hotel rooms for a convention. I was in Atlanta.
mm,
Um, and we heard these pops, and we didn't really understand what they were. And I was like, "Did you hear that?" Like it kind of sounded like somebody like I don't know broke some plates or something. Like it's like such a weird, distinct noise that was loud enough to register, but we didn't really think anything of it. And then we like in some of the chats that we had going to like connect in the convention because there were like 10,000 people there, right?
mm,
Some of the chats were kind of buzzing about like maybe a shooting having happened across the street or something like that. It
mm.
wasn't related to the event, like it wasn't targeted to the event, luckily. But
What
you know,
event was
like
it?
is FWA, which is Furry Weekend Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So not speedrunning related
No.
necessarily. That being said, though, their Furry Weekend Atlanta happens in May, and there is actually an organization that's going to put on a live speedrunning event this time. So there will be
Oh,
some
is it
furry
those
speedrunning
like
events.
fastest
Fastest
furs?
Furs,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Yeah, they're
I
the
know
ones
about
hosting.
speedrunning organizations,
Yeah,
even if I'm not personally interested in, something like that.
nor do you need to be, but
No,
yeah,
no,
they
yeah.
they
I
they
mean, I do
do
have
they
your
do
bird close
organize.
enough. It's as
Yeah,
furry as I'll be.
heck yeah, furry
There he is.
representation. But yeah, they're just hosting like a little. It'll be their very first live event of any kind. So, pretty excited to be able to partake in that. So
Yeah, that's cool. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I didn't hear my story. I didn't hear anything. There was just people running across. There was like a club across the street. I don't think anyone got hit or anything either.
that's good.
But yeah, it was, and we were like on the fourth floor of this tall building. So,
Yeah,
but I mean, we did have to. The hotel that Red Bull put the people that participate in that event in was like in walking distance, so you had to walk there. So, walking in Minneapolis during Pride Month at 1 a.m. is unfortunately not as safe as you'd want it to be.
unfortunately not.
Yeah, makes me a bit sad, but it's fine. Not really, but what was cool is I have some great pictures of the skyline from the rooftop, and they
That
had
is
like
cool.
the
Yeah,
cool like little rainbow lights and stuff. And I love like rainbow light aesthetic, like neon stuff. So it looks so cool. I have like these great pictures of the skyline.
hell yeah,
So I'm glad I got that out of it.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do hope he has another event there again. That was fun.
I actually had no idea it was Pride in Minneapolis that weekend.
Yeah,
But
well, it was Pride Month because it was
oh, right, because it was
June.
June.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what was great about his event, at least at that one, it wasn't like that at Chicago, but there was free pizza and alcohol.
Yo, let's
It
go.
was fucking awesome. Although all the alcohol was Red Bull, and I could only have like one of those because Red
Right.
Bull it does its job
Yep.
on
And
one
it's not
can.
really very good for you to mix with alcohol,
No, it's
but
not. Like it with vodka, sure, like just one thing, but no more than that, please. Like
yeah,
if I want other alcohol, I want non-Red Bull stuff.
yeah.
Like I don't like having too much energy drink in me. I don't drink energy drinks usually anyway. I
Yeah,
only do
yeah.
it at GDQs because it's free. And
Yep,
if it's
that
free,
sounds about
it's for
right.
me. I'll take that.
Yeah, for free is just for me with a couple letters missing, basically.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So you're going to GDQ.
yep, I'll be
Okay.
there. That's for sure. I did again submit a couple of runs, but
Mm-hmm.
already got some hotel accommodations planned and the
Yeah.
plane tickets. Got
Same
them
here. Planes
when I needed
purchased,
to. So
hotels ready, badge purchased. I'm good to go.
that's right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
going
I'm
to a lot of
super.
events this year. That and Pace and maybe even TwitchCon if they have GDQX again because there's someone I could stay with in Vegas.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
And I've never been to Vegas, although my family might take a trip there, so that would defeat the purpose of going to Vegas for the first time through there. But I don't know.
yeah. It's
I,
funny. I was actually just in Vegas like a couple weeks ago for the first time. It was my 30th birthday. My mom wanted to give me like a trip. It wasn't anything to do with streaming or anything like that, but yeah, Vegas is an experience. That's for sure.
mm-hmm.
It's an anomaly all on its own.
I've always
Uh,
wanted to visit just because I know it would look cool. Like I don't
yeah.
care about gambling or anything, but I remember I had a friend that his family went, but he wasn't like old enough yet. So this would have been like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, or something. And he was
Right.
like, it was like a kid in a candy store, like you, but not being allowed to go in, like just looking through the window.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So, but yeah, I'm excited to check out that city. It just seems like a cool city. All the lights
Yeah.
and stuff. Like I was saying, I like the whole light aesthetic stuff, and that's all that place is.
It's true. Yep.
So should be
And all
fun.
day long.
And hopefully TwitchCon's got something for me if I go to it. I'm hoping they bring back GDQX, but
That'd be kind
yeah,
of fun. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
don't know if they will though.
I've never done a TwitchCon, so I've been told that it's a lot more exciting when you're a partner,
Hmm.
which is something that I am now. So that's kind of cool. But
Yeah, I don't think I
um,
would be if I doubt I'll get partnered by then, but or ever. But
you never know.
yeah, I think they have like a whole +1 thing, and I do know
Oh, like
people
the
that
partner
are,
parties?
yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So hopefully that would be good enough. I'd like to just meet people there, like kind of outside of speedrunning, but because there's some big streamers that will react to Assault video or react to a speed run, so they like care at least, or maybe they'll be in like one of Simply's, like bring on streamers to try to run the game thing. And I think that'd be
Right.
cool to talk to some people like that because you don't really get to do that
That's true. Yeah.
otherwise. So I just thought it'd be cool, but I really want GDQX to be there again because
Yeah.
I just like going to GDQs, and that's just another one. So.
Yeah. I also love them. Can't get enough of them. Feels like a second home. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah, I
always down to go to GDQs.
think I'm gonna go to like every GDQ and Pace I can now. I really liked Pace, and now this time it's gonna be even bigger. Plus, there's the whole Mario tournament thing, so
Yep.
I'm 100% going just because of that. But I mean, last time I really enjoyed myself, and you were at 2019, right?
Pace 2019. Yeah, the
Their
first one
first
they
one,
did.
yeah, and then they didn't until last year again.
Yeah, I did buy tickets to go the next year, and then that didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
um, and I don't know. I think that Pace is kind of centered around the competitive stuff, so I would be more inclined to go if they maybe included Odyssey in it. But
Hmm.
um,
I mean, they
it's
do
kind of
have showcase runs.
yeah,
It's still a
they
24/7 event, and they only have like the tournament during the midday times.
right.
So
That
I
is
was
true.
I was able to do my first like on stage run at Pace last year. I
Yeah,
did both Mario 1 solo and then a race of Warpless of All Stars Lost Levels. That was cool. But I mean,
that's
just
right.
having the smaller environment and being able to talk to everyone, and it was you could like go out and do stuff in the world a little easier.
Hmm.
I just thought it was a lot more fun in that sense, like the whole
For sure.
social
Yeah,
aspect.
yeah, exactly.
Although this one's
Like,
going to be a lot bigger than it was last year.
yeah.
It
Do you know
sounds
how many
like.
people?
I feel like
Or
already 200 people are like thinking of going. I don't know exactly. Last time it was like maybe 100 something.
yeah, I think the first one was about 200 people as well. But it's still like GDQ is like 2,000, so you're
Hmm.
cutting the
Yeah,
event
it's
down by like a tenth,
significantly
right?
smaller.
So yeah,
And they have a
you are in the
pretty
presence
large
of
space for it. Like when
yeah,
you went, they had that room with like the TVs in the wall. It was a pretty big area. That
Yep.
room wasn't accessible at this one because they were had it for voting. So it was just like
Oh, right.
the main stage and then like the little computer section off to the side.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
never full ever.
Yep.
So like it's small enough. So
Yeah.
definitely more tight knit event, I feel.
Are they still hosting it at
Yeah,
the
it's still
Laurel
at
Park?
Xanadu Games or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. Yeah,
It's like a
Laurel Park. Yeah.
it's a horse racetrack,
Hmm.
but
It's
also
cool. I mean,
yeah.
it's cool that you can just like get food over there. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, not there
It's,
for the
it's a
betting, but it's an interesting location. But I mean, it's cool.
yep. It's an interesting vibe.
Yeah.
All the old people who like bet on horses are probably like, "What are all these like gamers doing here?"
Yeah, I mean, they do have that flashy sign right outside the door, so
It's
people can
true.
walk in, look over there, and be like, "Oh, that's there. That's why
Yep.
nerds are here."
Yeah. In like, random like rural Maryland
Yeah,
of all
literally.
places.
Definitely. And I don't know what it was like in 2019, but last year they're doing road construction on like right in between the hotel and the
Oh,
location.
no. That's
So
sucky.
like you could either, drive because unfortunately the only way to get there is to like drive a mile out of the way and a mile back. They have some really jank setup there, but
Yeah.
or you could walk through the construction zone, hop a fence, and that's what everyone did.
Yeah. Because that's
So
what we did in 2019, just there wasn't construction there.
yeah,
We
yeah, it
just
was
like
just like
we
gravel
beelined it from the
road.
hotel. Yeah, the
There was
gravel
some
road.
machines and stuff in the way. You just go around them, hop a fence, and you're in.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm excited to go to that again.
It was a pretty cool event. I won't lie.
Yeah, events are always the highlight, so got to go to as many of them as you can, even if you take a nice financial cut every time.
Yeah.
It's worth.
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think kind of the nice benefit of being a content creator is that like if it's in line with what you do as a
Hmm.
content creator, then usually you can find a way to justify it within those means. So,
Yeah,
like if you end up having a GDQ run, for example, like it's pretty easy to set up like, hey, like this trip is going to be pretty expensive. Like they obviously don't fly us in for free, so um, here's like an incentive that we're gonna meet. You guys are gonna pay for my accommodations and my plane ticket, and I'll give you like I don't know a 12-hour Super Mario Odyssey run or something. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I will admit that like while I don't really like incentivizing things, like I think that's kind of one of the crummiest parts about the job.
yeah,
It is something that you can kind of do to come up with something fun. So
yeah. I do. I don't like receiving money in that way. Like I
yeah,
know you kind of have to, but I
as a content
try
creator,
to
you have
avoid
to.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm not really one, at least not professionally. So, like,
right.
I can't like. It's not easy for me to raise money like that. Sometimes I can if there's like one freak person that goes insane, but
Yeah.
usually not. I usually just have to pay for that out of pocket.
Yep. That's
And
just the reality of it, really.
yeah,
But um, yeah, it's I'll admit it's not my favorite part of being a content
I don't
creator. Is
think
a
it's anyone's favorite part. You
yeah,
don't want to like take beg for money from people you like,
yeah, yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
exactly what it feels
yeah,
like.
it's exactly what it is. But I mean, yeah, I guess it's just part of it. Like you can't really avoid it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I mean,
you're a full
I
time because of other people being generous, so
that's right. Yeah, and
that's just what you're doing.
as kind of soul crushing as that can feel sometimes, it is true that like people wouldn't give if they didn't want to at the
Hmm.
end of the day. So that's kind of what you have
Like
to
you're
tell
not
yourself as a
forcing
content creator.
anyone.
Yeah, you're
If
suggesting, and
someone was
they
forcing,
are
that's
accepting,
very
right?
different than
Yeah,
just kind of asking, "Hey, if you want to and you can, here you go, get
yeah,
something out of it."
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think I've asked everything I care to ask. I feel like
That's
we've
fair.
talked about everything. It's been quite good.
A
I
good three
enjoyed
hour
it.
sesh of just
Yeah.
vibing and speed running and all that jazz. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat. We could toss it over to them, maybe.
Yeah. I've asked a couple times, but I haven't seen anything yet, so
Now this
Um.
is me asking, chat room.
Oh, okay.
Give me questions or I'll cry, okay?
Mm. Well, we don't want that.
Don't make me cry.
Oh, we can't have tears on my stream.
Yeah, there's no crying in the GTA broadcast.
Oh,
But I
that
want
that's
to see
kind
you cry,
that's kind of
Don. That's
weird.
terrible.
It's kind of weird. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, me crying is something you can see on my OnlyFans.
Oh,
Um,
is that what it's for?
that's exactly what it's for. Yeah.
I see. Never been there.
Pe- People
So.
think it's for porn. It's actually just to see your favorite celebrities and content creators in a vulnerable situation, which I guess is also porn.
All right.
But welcome to OnlyFans. Anyway,
I now know more about what it is, and I will continue to avoid it.
that's totally fair. Yeah.
Mhm. um, um,
No
yeah,
questions though. There
yeah.
are no questions. Hmm. So strange. Guess I'll have to cry. I can't cry on command though, so that's actually not going to happen. But
But yeah, you can. Oh, there was
where's
kitten.
Kitten? She is a little cinnamon roll on my bed right now. Yeah. Because when you, I will admit that waking up at noon is not something that I usually do. I usually sleep in, but
Mm.
noon is like when it started for me because that's 1 Central. But
Yep.
you kind of woke me up this morning. I like saw your message. I was like, crap, that's
Shit.
today. I oh no, gotta like get out of bed and like hustle and scramble. But usually what keeps me in bed is the fact that like my cat will join me in the bed and she's like there. So
Yeah. I usually wake up pretty late too, but um, I feel like a good time for this is like for me, it's like just when afternoon starts.
yeah,
So
that's relatively fair.
but yeah, I stay up way too late sometimes, so I try to have a sleep schedule that isn't horrible for me. So
Yeah,
that's what this is for.
it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a
Sleeping's
lot more
hard.
productive. I feel a lot more productive late at night, but
Yes. Oh, I
uh
came up with this whole idea while trying to sleep, like to do a
oh, the show?
talk show. Yeah.
That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, I have all my good ideas when I'm trying to sleep, and then I'm like, damn it, I'm trying to sleep. Why am I having good
Yeah.
ideas?
Like, why does it have to be like that? Like, I
Mm,
want to be productive during the day when everybody else is productive so that
exactly.
I can like go to the store that I need to buy stuff from, or I need to, visit my PO box, but I need to make sure that the attendant is there because they bring the packages from the back. Or like there's so many errands that can only be run during the day because that's when people actually work.
Yep.
But I am not productive until like probably 5 p.m. when I start my stream. And then afterwards I'm like full of energy. I'm ready to do whatever. But then there's nobody around, so there's nothing to
Hmm.
do. It's like
Definitely.
it's just the worst curse. But
Well, anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up here since there's no questions and I can't think of anything else to talk about. So feel free to self promote how you'd like.
sure, twitch.tv/dangers. We stream every day except for Mondays and Fridays. Speedrunning has taken a bit of a hiatus, I will admit. So if that's what you're looking for, I guess you can also go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/dangerstv. That has some of my PBs and some of my analysis videos and how-to videos and stuff that I've made over the years um, for that kind of content. But yeah, we've been doing Kaizo Ironmon, which is, I would say, pretty speedrun adjacent. It feels the same in the sense that we play the first 5 minutes of the game over and over again until we get something that actually is good. Um,
Perfect.
so, yeah, it's a bit like gambling mixed with the mentality of like trying to get to the end of the game with a winner. So, come check it out if you want to. If not, that's fine. But yeah, that's all I really got right now. Thank you for having me on GTA's.
Oh,
It was
thanks for
cool.
being on. This was a good conversation.
Anytime, yeah.
Yep.
I was glad to.
All right. I'll obviously be uploading this to YouTube tomorrow if you're watching this live because it is not Sunday today. But I had something to do tomorrow, so although this
So
is
April Fools.
yeah, April Fools. It's funny because I call this the Sunday Speedrunner Spotlight. My past two episodes have been streamed on Saturday, but
Right.
Sometimes Sunday doesn't always work, but I just needed that triple S. It sounds cool.
Of course.
Articulation and all that.
Mhm.
Anyway, stay tuned for next week. I'll have someone else on, and we'll talk about speedrunning some more, as we do. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.